Rise and shine. You gotta get up, get out, and get something.
Yeah, Brandon say he coming. I'm about to email him now. I don't know. Hopefully my email will let me send it to him, because it wouldn't let me send the link for some strange reason. So I'm putting it in the chat for you and Brandon. So I'll be ready to come on, join in like 5-10 minutes. My email was tripping, so I'm gonna email Brandon.
Early morning, kinda sleeping, still yawning, log on it, dial toning, forever phoning for a blessing. Will you help me get my ass up out the bed and go? God love me cause he said it so. Don't look away cause I beg for more than I ever had. Praying for the future, but I'm dealing with the past. Mama say I worry cause I'm doing like my dad. Some things are forever, nothing ever lasts. Like the rising of the sun, knowing big mama pass. Time travel fast, searching you shall find. Awake from your slumber, open up your blinds. You gotta get up, get out and get something. Why rest when all the world running? Nothing never comes to those that just wait. Don't never lose sight of your goal, just keep straight. The early bird gets the worm. You live and you learn. I've been waiting on my chance. Well, you gotta wait your turn. To who it may concern. Ain't much time left, gotta fight to the death for my family. MJ baseline, they can't handle me. Slam dunk, hang time like a canopy. Tired of sitting on the couch, watching celebs pout about the troubles of $1 million house. So tell them I'm out on my grizzly. Put your lighters in the air if you feel me. I ain't lying, it's the time to wake up, wipe your eyes, rise and shine. Free your mind. Yo. You gotta get up, get out and get something. Why rest when all the world running? Nothing never comes to those that just wait. Don't never lose sight of your goal, just keep straight. My nigga holla bang bang as the cops pass. Cause just the other day they tried to rob his stash. Jammed up his studs, now he called from the pen. They got him praying for his bail so they won't take.
And everything messing up. My Gmail won't let me send. So let me just see if I can get my commercial in right quick and get that. Let me see if it let me do that, because I don't know what's going on.
Black love plus black dollars equals black power. Black love plus black dollars equals black power. This is your boy, Black Jesus Minister, the Ecclesiastes 3 Christian. Be sure to subscribe to our brother, your brother, Brother Bakari on YouTube. Brothers and sisters. Peace, Brother Bakari.
Yeah. Believe in me. Grieve for me if I'm gone, and carry on your own. You way stronger than you think. Ain't no safety if it ain't safe. Headshot or the base, cut the head off the snake.
Peace, everybody. Thanks for joining. What's going on, Shizoro?
Man, you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you, man. I don't know what's going on, man. Hopefully, Brandon got the email, because Gmail was frozen. Every time I tried to send the link to either one of y'all, Gmail would freeze up. It would not let me send the link. But it let me email it.
You know what that is? That doesn't mean they on to it, but that means we're doing the right thing. Right? Yeah, man. I used to have Brandon's number. We tried to organize. I had a WhatsApp group at one time. I'll be all over the place. So you left.
I hope I don't have his number. I just have his email. I hope he got that email, man, because my Gmail was tripping.
Yeah, he got a Facebook. I don't know if he still has. He has like a Facebook investment page. That's why I got his number. I think.
OAP.
I can look for it. Yeah, I think I can look for it, but it might take me a couple minutes.
Yeah, that's okay. Go ahead, see if you can find it, man. We good. They'll give a couple more people to come. Whoever gonna come, give a couple more to come on here.
Yeah, I'm running behind. I would have had some notes ready, but I'll be back.
All right.
I'll be back.
I mean, I thank y'all for joining. I got two guests that's supposed to be here while we discuss this equality versus power. My Gmail tripping won't let me send it out. Wouldn't let me send the link. I had Cesaro number, so I was able to just text him. I'll put it and let him know I put it in the chat. I'm hoping Brandon from Pan-Africanism Strikes Back. I hope he get it and he can come on through, because I want him to talk about his OAP to show what we are doing. We're not just sitting back. That we're not just sitting back, waiting on people to say, hold on, Ben Uko, I got to get that link that's in the chat was for two people, Cesaro and Brandon. After they come on and do their interview and we talk about what we're talking about, then I was going to invite other people on. So, but after they speak and they say what they want is what we're talking about, then you can come on. And peace to everybody in the chat. You know, I named this one, they're going to come on here, so I'm going to go ahead and start talking. I named this one Equality versus Power, right? This is in a society structure, right? Equality versus power. I pulled up the definition, but I'm scared to even mess with it now because it tripping so bad. I'm gonna see if I can read it, because what I say is equality is something somebody have to give you. Power is something you want and you go get it. Even if you don't think that you can attain power, because you're not in a position right now, financially, economically, socially, politically, right? But the one thing that I learned, right? Even if you ever read the book, The Art of War, you use other people's stuff to build yourself up. So with that being said, we are not in the positions right now. We're not giving one another jobs and everything because we haven't been in that position. But if we use what we have right now, we can create power for ourselves, right? We can create it. In the power that we can have, we probably won't have the ultimate power, not in this country anyway, right? But we can have the power over our neighborhoods. We can turn our neighborhoods into good community for us, for ourselves, for our kids to grow up in. We can have the power over the businesses in our neighborhoods, in our communities. We can create a structure. We can create a structure where we can have something. The things that we need to provide for our families, the thing that we need for the future, right? Like I look back at the past, don't dwell on it, but I look back at the past to find success, right? To find some of the successes that our people have had. Even though the success here in this country may have been limited, but we use that limited success as motivation. So as we're speaking and we're talking, we get out of the habit of saying, they won't let us do this, or they are controlling us with this, and they are stopping us from this. They are putting these obstacles in our way like this, right? What I'm gonna do is to take back. I'm gonna put her number in the chat, and I'm gonna let you call because I think it may entail both of those, sales and telemarketing, right? So I'm gonna put a. Do you have a number to take back? Do you have a number? So we got to have something that we need a foundation, right? For me, I say it's Garveyism or parish, right? Pan-Africanism. And I know everybody is not going to say Pan-Africanism because a lot of people don't understand it. A lot of people think Pan-Africanism is everybody just getting up, packing your bags, going back to Africa. Even Marcus Garvey understood that everybody was not going to go back to Africa. But at the same time, right, when he was creating for people here. We wanted to create the organization, the UNIA wanted to create for African descent people on the continent, for African people on the continent, and the diaspora, right? So saying you just have to get up and go, that's not exactly what Pan-African is. Pan-Africanism is. Pan-Africanism is global African unity, Black unity, global unity, right? So we always focus on the ones that don't want to unite. So I like to say we don't worry about them. Let's deal with the ones that want to be with us. That's all we need. We don't need everybody. We just need everybody that want to be there. It's 45, 50 million African Americans in this country. And half of them ain't going to even say they're African American. Half of them, they're more loyal to the slave owners, the captors, than they are to themselves, right? They're more loyal to them than we are to ourselves. So let's not worry about them. Don't call me African. I'm an American, right? We are so loyal. My flag is red, white, and blue. They even insult the red, black, and green flag. Then you have the ones that want to be a Native American Indian, right? So then you have the ones that want to be Asiatic or Hebrew or whatever, right? Now, everybody in those groups they're not necessarily against Pan-Africanism or global Black unity. So I'm only talking about the ones that don't want to be a part. And it's going to be at least half, more than half, that don't want to be a part, right? So we have been given lemons, right? So since we have been given lemons, we need to make lemonade, right? So that's what we have to do for ourselves. And we're going to create this, right? We have our youth that we have to be concerned about as well. So when they finish college or whatever it is they're going through, we want to be in it. We want to have them in a position where they don't always have to go to other people to survive, right? That's what power is. That's power, right? That's power. Y'all give me 1 second. I just got the brother number. Give me 1 second. I'm going to give him a call to let him know. Okay, I'm back. I just sent him a text. He don't know my number. So that's probably why I didn't answer. But I sent him a text and let him know Gmail wouldn't allow me to send the link. So I put it in the chat. Hopefully he come on through. Now, my good brother right here, Chizarro, what he's talking about today, he's talking about the CARICOM, that's the Caribbean, the Afro-Caribbean, and the African continent. Hopefully oh, he fell off. Come on back, my man. Hopefully I understood him right, because he's going to be talking about the African Union. And I think if I remember correctly, like Afro-Caribbean is now being accepted into the African Union. But he's gonna disseminate that message and that knowledge better than me, because he know more about it than me. That's why I want him on here to discuss it. And the good brother Brandon, Pan-Africanism Strikes Back, if he's able to make it, he's going to talk about his organization, OAP, where they are buying land, purchasing land over in Kenya. And right, and for me, I say that's creating power. You create power for yourself. You use we use the things that we have, right? Instead of constantly saying they won't, instead of constantly making excuses. I have to do a show about that too, removing the crutches. I'm not saying nobody has never done anything to us. I'm not saying that this system in the whole world have not been against us. But if we constantly dwell on that, we won't go forward. We will stay stagnant, right? And we don't want to remain stagnant. We want to be able to move forward. That's why you hear the reparations groups. They're just stuck on reparations. And when you talk about what can we do, it's always what they won't let us do. Oh. I'm trying to get everything set up. I'm sorry. So they're going to be coming through pretty soon, right? But like I was saying, we always use everything as a crutch. We know what has happened. We know what continued to happen, right? So, but we're going to have to look in the mirror and say, but what are we going to do? What are we going to do? And that's the biggest thing. The biggest thing is us believing that we can do something, us believing that we can build something, us believing that we are strong enough together where we can control our neighborhoods, turn our neighborhoods into communities, where we have enough respect for one another, where we don't let people come in like the video I showed the other day with the Arabs on top of the store, just shooting black people. And they didn't do anything, because he thought they was coming in his store to loot after Hurricane Ida in New Orleans. But we hear these New Orleans night war, baby. 17 war. Where you from? The 17. They got whole songs for it. And they talk about what they will do. But other people can come and show their power against us, and we don't do anything. It's almost as if we have given up. We only fight one another. So I'm going to read the definition of power in society. In social science and politics, power is the capacity of an entity to influence others. The term authority is often used for power that is perceived as legitimate by the social structure, not to be confused with, I can't say that word, I know what it is, authoritarianism. I can't say it. I know what it is, though. In simple terms, power can be expressed as being upward and downward, right? So that's power. When you have the power to influence, Basically, you're controlling, you're writing the laws, the same thing we're going through now. You know, the same thing we're going through right now, dealing with other people writing laws for us, telling us how we should live. They're still policing us. We're over policed. We're overcharged. We're over sentenced. But that's because we sit back and we allow other people to do it. We have bought into their system, right? In their system is what keeping us confused. Because instead of trying to be ourselves, we want to be the ones that's in charge. So now I'm going to read the definition of equality in a society. Social equality is a state of affairs in which all individuals within a specific society have equal rights, liberties, and status, possibly including civil rights, freedom of expression, autonomy, and equal access to certain public goods and social services, right? So now watch this. Who do you think is going to give us that? Do you expect the descendants of the slave owners, straw balls, overseers, shipbuilders to say all of a sudden you're equal? No, I don't. Peace, Shazaro.
Peace, brother. Sorry about that.
No, you good. I texted him and I emailed him. I don't know. So I called him. He didn't answer. So hopefully he got the message through the email and on text, and hopefully he'll come on through.
All right. Yep.
But I want you to start telling us about this Comic-Con. Make sure I understood you right. The Afro descendants from the Caribbean, from the islands, they're about to be part of the African Union. If I was wrong, if I misunderstood you, correct me.
Yeah, but, man. Yep, that's exactly what it is, man.
Okay, that's so can you explain that? And once you so let me ask you a question, right? If we are okay, once you explain it, then I'm gonna ask you a couple of questions, if that's okay.
All right. So
all right.
I'm gonna explain it like this, just so people don't get into chicanery. But what it is Caribbean. There's something called the Caribbean community. So just like we could say there's a Florida, Georgia, like let's say there's a Southern states community, and all the governors work together, right? So that's the same thing they got in the Caribbean. Like the Caribbean politicians work together, and since most of them are black, they said let's make a bridge to the African Union where most of the people are black. So at this point, there's a bridge. If you got to end with the activists in the Caribbean, the black activists in the Caribbean could walk over to Africa and push their agenda if they're organized. So it's eye-opening that nobody in the U.S. Pan-African community is talking about it, or just me as an organizer. I didn't find any strong connection as far as organizations that have branches in the Caribbean and in the USA. As far as it's surprising with all this African culture people got going on. You would think there's some organization that simply could call up and say, I want to join. You got branches in the Caribbean and in the USA. Let's take advantage. But the CARICOM, the Caribbean activists that are black and in politics, they created a bridge. So now it's time for us to organize, since we don't have any organization that connects us. But it's wide open right now. So that's where the Garvey movement, stuff we've been talking about for a couple months, comes into play, where it's looking real sweet.
Okay, so now could you explain like what a benefit of being in the African Union? What benefit would we get? I just want to see if I'm right about what I was thinking.
All right, I'll put it like this, because with Garvey, basically he had we always say Garvey and Garveyism, but people don't really know what it's about. really know what it's about. Back in the day, there was something called conservative, being conservative, right, and conservation, right. So this was about conserving your bloodline, right, and also the environment. Some people in the white community call it eugenics, but Marcus Garvey basically created an African conservative or Negro Improvement and Conservative Association. So he's trying to make black people like one race again. So a lot of people over here didn't like him because he kind of went in with the mixed race people, but he was basically basically you might say he's a black conservative or black into eugenics. So, but the funny thing is, he was mentioned, the UNIA and his organization was mentioned as a reason for the Caribbean governments connecting to the African Union. And the one person who mentioned him, he was basically Portuguese. His parents was immigrants, but he wasn't even black. But he said that's why we're connected. So it's funny. It's real funny. I watched the summit parts of it, but it's real funny what's going on. But even the UNIA right now, it's like split into so many factions. They don't have the African cultural system that would make them unite. So everybody wants to be the president of this and that. And in African culture, we don't have presidents like that. We have traditional names and things. It's just it's an age gap and a disconnect where if we're not direct, it might take like 20, 50 years to get this thing on the track if we're not really precise. So,
but if we go ahead and start pushing now, right?
Yeah.
Being African American, well, I call myself an American-born African, but African American, right? We could it's possible we could start talking now and build those bridges.
Yeah, you could turn a town hall association. That's basically what Marcus Garvey had, the town halls. You could turn a town hall meeting or association, get it registered, and basically use it to steer African governments' policies towards what you want. Just like there's an Arab League, but Marcus Garvey created his African Communities League earlier. It just fell apart because, the cultural bridge was not there. He was freestyling a lot of stuff as far as what he knows about Africa, but that's where we come in. He was actually freestyling a lot. It wasn't a lot of that. If he knew what he was doing exactly and had the information we have, he wouldn't have been infiltrated or sabotaged like he was. If you look at it, it's a lot of people like to.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
A lot of people like to mythologize white people and say they defeated our greatest heroes. But really, if you look at their plans, you could go back and say, oh, he did this wrong. Let me do it better. But that comes with, you got to have a backbone, a Jed, as you call it in Kemet. You got to be ready for that fight.
Yes, you do. You know what? I always say, for me, I hear a lot of black people believe in socialism, right? Some communism, right? I hear a lot of Gaddaffiites, right? For me, I say it's Garveyism or perish, right? Because I think, for me, the brilliance of Marcus Garvey and what he did was in the UNIA, because it wasn't just him, even with the mistakes and flaws that they made, right? But the brilliance, they were able to use. They were using a capitalistic system right here in this country or around the world, whatever, and creating what I call, if they want to say it's socialism, but we called it was coined Garveyism, creating a African type socialism, right? Where we shared amongst ourselves, right? He didn't stop you from owning. You could own a business, but you couldn't only acquire so much. You understand what I'm saying? But
yeah, he said, I read an article specifically. He put out his theory where he doesn't, I think he said, be wary of socialism or communism. Of course, there should be limits. He he said $1 million should be the limit. But I just came up with this last week, maybe this week, that you never, in all the African empires and greatness that you hear about, before slavery, right? Or even the empires that rose during slavery, you never hear about one company that was famous in Africa. But the empires, and the reason that is because the empires basically were the company. You had to pay tribute to the government if you're a trader or a merchant. None of the merchants or that ever existed ever outshine the government. Back when we had it, because you have to pay tribute, but there wasn't no Apple, no Sony, nothing like that. And that's what we're headed back to. And that's what might piss off some black people, because they want to outshine their nation. and that's where we messed up. You don't call it capitalism or socialism or nothing, but when you go to those meetings, the African clan meetings that we have, you got to give back. It's not about you. It's about your name should not outshine your people. That's what it's about.
Yeah. So now, so if we're interested in getting this done, because I know there's some people that's in the chat that interested in being part of the African Union, because I see if we could be part of the African Union, we would have some type of backing, maybe some type of protection. I don't know how much, but we would have some type of connection to our land, to our mother, that the rest of the world want and the rest of the world need, right? So we would be in a position to reach back and not let other people come and control what is rightfully ours, right? So how would someone in the chat who wanted to be a part of this, how would they be able to contact you and say, let's get this started, because that is something we need now. We don't need to wait 5 years to get started. We want to get it started right now. And how many people would we need, and what would we need?
All right, the way, as far as I want to give some background, because I'm going to go into a long story, but like I started this 3 years ago, but my background, I was raised basically in a Nigerian association, like community clan association, right? So I saw how we organized, and we had hundreds of members, and I saw that African immigrants did this all across the country, but Black diaspora don't have anything like that because of the trauma and the confusion that goes on. But as far as plugging in Africa, we have a lot of cultures that are related, and it's based on the rivers that people migrated and had families along, civilizations. So I would say from our research and what we're doing in the continent, there's about 4 major communities or tribes based on the rivers where everybody's related. So what the issue we have in America as far as organizing is that everybody has their own organization or their spiritual belief, where everybody's doing their own thing, and they call it Pan-Africanism, where everybody gets to do what they want. But if you do all that as an individual, you don't have any community time. In our language, Igbo language, it says Amani Ora. It means community time. If you look at it, it's Amun Ra. It's a force of nature. So if you have that individual time and that individualism, and you say, this is my culture, this is where I trace myself back from, I'm going to go over here and forget everybody else, it's never going to work. So that would be the first thing. You guys have to come as a group, a massive group, and you have to be connected to the people back home. So if it's, if you practice Yoruba culture, you have to connect with the Yoruba kings and organize all of them, because they've been fighting for centuries. And if you want to connect with Kenya, contact our Kenyan leadership and say, how do I get assimilated into the culture and be part of you? So we have bases set up in Africa, and it's about working with those communities to duplicate what they're doing and like become basically part of the family, whatever the culture is. But in our experience, since diaspora, everybody's saying they're kings, and they got such a huge number. We said that it's probably going to be the Igbo town hall system that they have to connect with.
There's a lot of Igbos here.
Yeah, that's what we. But that's the Nat Turner and the Haitian Revolution system. It wasn't no paramount king or divine pharaoh. Just like a speaker of the house, or you guys have a meeting, handle business, and get free. It's a matter of fact type thing. It's like straight to the point. Some people don't like that, but that's what we said is going to work. We got a sister working on it in Massachusetts. She's supposed to call my clan leader tomorrow, but that's the Nat Turner energy. Some people might not be ready for that, but that's the one that's really moving right now. We tried to reach out to the Yoruba kings. They had some issues with the program, but they've been fighting for centuries. Then we try to reach out to the Akan and Ashanti in Ghana. There was issues there. They're all one basically tribe or community, but they've been fighting for centuries. And it's just now, they probably wouldn't support this, to be honest. Unless they'd support it at the last minute. It's just the way it is. But that we go into deeper, but yeah.
Now, who did you say probably wouldn't support it?
Say the Yoruba kings. A lot of people in the USA practice Yoruba culture or Ifa, but
yeah,
that with that system, there's a paramount king system, and since you got to kind of bow down to the king, and the diasporas, I've talked to them, they're really not Ifa practitioners. They say they're not having it, so they're not even connected a lot of the times to the leadership back home. They just pick it up because they want to, and so it's another fracture, another split, and there's people called Pan-Africanists, and we thought they were connected back home, and sometimes that's not the case.
So let's say we practice some Igbo traditional systems, right?
Mm-hmm.
How would we be able to contact a chief to say, let's say we have a number, you say it'd have to be a big number, right? So let's say we have 100,000 people. Would that be big enough? I'm just
I mean, that'd be pretty successful.
Yeah.
We're working. We set up some companies in Africa already with some of the kingdoms, and but 100,000 is like. Let me back up. We set up some kingdom, but we want to get them registered with the diaspora leadership. That there's like 4 different diaspora leadership as far as the UNIA goes. We're trying to use what we're doing at home that's unified to bring all the diaspora branches together, and we want to get registered under them as well. And they say 7 people minimum, but we'll have a traditional structure where it's a sisterhood. There's a brotherhood, and they all learn the traditions. And whatever the number is, you can get it registered. You can work with the leadership in Atlanta and create the Constitution and just spread it across, east to west. The leadership in most of the UNIA, a lot of it's Caribbean, so they're connected to CARICOM and things like that, but they haven't gone through like the traditional Igbo system, so they're kind of like placeholders, or they can do the bureaucracy of getting you down to the Caribbean in contact, but they don't have the knowledge of this particular program set up, or the systems. So we're building it from scratch, a lot of it.
Okay. So if we build it and we had the number, how would we be able to contact like one of the Igbo chief or the kingdom the chiefdom, how would we be able to get in touch with them and say, you know, we want to be a part, we want to be part of? How would we be able to do that?
I'm glad you said that, because I've been trying to get people in Atlanta to do it for years. But I'm in Jacksonville. I don't drive, right? So I'm not really mobile, but a lot of the leadership is in Atlanta, where you can just call them and say, this is our, you know, I got a PDF where it shows the basic structure of what a town hall would look like. And you talk to them about how would we set up an education system? What are some of the easy cultural activities we can do to get together? There's basketball already going on in the continent. So eventually we see like a partnership with the professional sports programs where the Black business owners get beneficial deals because they're organized. And that ties into the political system too with sports, the military industrial complex, some people call it. But the chiefs are easy to contact, but you, like with culture, with Africans, if you look at the history of their empires and their civilizations, it's not really culture for culture's sake, like dresses and this and that. It's really, I want to say, martial arts. A lot of these communities were started through war, fighting robbers, outlaws. So it's really a martial arts system if people want to be honest. And that's what you be getting yourself into. When you learn about the traditions, a lot of that stuff is for survival and getting people on a military mindset, working together. Even the dances, you're training to work together. So that's what the mindset you have to come into it with. Like it's karate, kung fu. So you can contact the chiefs, but you know, God, that's what it is. You're entering a dojo.
So how would I find them? You said it right here in Atlanta. Like, do they have a number? I can look them up.
Yeah.
How would I know where they are? A phone number if I wanted to go speak with them or something.
Okay. There's one. Let's see. The most reliable one is, I'd say, the Council of Igbo States in America. They call it CISA, CISA. I could send the
Council
number.
of Igbo States in America.
Yeah, we are Council of Igbo States in America. Their motto is one people, one aim, one destiny. So they're ripping out garbage.
Yeah, but that's good.
Yeah, it's funny with people like to always, when they hear about it, they like to say we're doing tribalism, right? But if you people don't research, with the Igbos in Nigeria, we had the Igbo State Union, and we had Nnamdi Azikiwe, where he was saying, let's create states based on the tribes or ethnic groups and language groups, and let's create a United States of Africa out of the natural boundaries and borders we already have. Let's basically undo the Berlin Conferences to unite Africa. So that's what the Igbos were known for. And then that didn't go through. We had the Biafra War, and they replaced our basically Igbo state organization, and here we are. A lot of stuff changed, but history is wiped out in the curriculum, military presidents and all that. But Igbos have always stood for the United States of Africa, historically.
Igbo stand for what?
They've always stood for or organized for the United States of Africa.
Oh, okay. Like Marcus Garvey. But that's what we need, though. That's what we need. You know.
You know, we're at this point where, you know, a lot of the Caribbean is basically Igbos too, because the DNA, and also they don't like to listen to nobody. You have to have a town hall meeting. But with them, you know, the funny thing is Haiti is about 25% of the population of the Caribbean. But a lot of them don't even have a Pan-African organization with branches there. So at this point, we are starting a lot from scratch, but we're basically an extension of the Haitian Empire at this point, what we're trying to build, where Haiti said, if you're enslaved or you feel enslaved and you're Black, you know, you could claim our citizenship. And that's The first time it never happened in African history that someone said something like that. So Garvey came back with his league, but really it's an extension of the Haitian Empire, and that's what we're picking up the baton. But they got a lot of Igbo spirits and titles down there that are funny. It's funny, but they still got some of that in the Caribbean, a lot, a lot actually. So it's going to be a different century. That's all I can say.
You know what? This is a very important, and I hope the people that's listening, and I know they do, but I hope they understand, because I'm putting the information in right now for the Council of Igbo States of America. When you said it, I looked it up. So I'm putting their phone number and their email in the chat right now, because this is very important. You know, we want to get connected for the people that want to be connected to the continent, and we want to have. Because for me, I would say, what is it? The African Union could provide some type of protection. We want to learn how to do business on the continent of Africa, where the rest of the world is going to do business on the continent of Africa. If we have these connections, right? If we have these connections, we can do anything anyone else does. You know, instead of Asians going and saying they're putting down streets in Africa, stuff that we know how to do, right? We can go. Like me, I know how to pave streets. I know how to do paving. I know how to do grading and paving. We can go. These are the type of things that I'm talking about, why this would be so important. And if other people can go, if other people in the land belong to us, but if other people can go and take advantage and use our people. See, that's the difference. They want to use our people and keep them at the bottom. We want to go and work with our people. If I could take a paving company over there, asphalt company, you know how many Africans we could teach from the continent to do it themselves, where they don't always have to hire out. You understand? But right now, they're being used by everybody else. The same is here. So I don't know if that's just an African mindset globally, because people come to our neighborhoods right now and use us and treat us, and we allow them to treat us bad, right? We sit back and we take it. You see the guys out and they selling a little dope, and they are selling for the Arab is normally in charge. They're even in charge of that. We're bowing down to them in every way, and we're allowing them to come in our community, which they won't sell dope in their community, but they'll come to our community and sell it to us, and they are in control of that. So connecting with our people, and there's an opportunity to be a part of a union, something this country, America, would never, ever give us, right?
Yep.
They would never give us.
They're going to union that. Yep.
Because they don't want us that way. They want us to remain, they want us to continue to bicker with one another. They want us to continue to hate one another. They don't want us to see one another as brothers and sisters, right? But it's 2021 now. It's not about what they want. It's not about, we know, I'm going to say it again, we know what they have done. We know what they're going to continue to try to do. Like I say, we run around the obstacle, we jump the obstacle, or we run through it. Anywhere it go, we have to get past it. And being part of this African Union, if we would, see, that's why I named it equality versus power. We keep asking certain group of people to give us equality. But I don't want equality, I want power. Equal to who? I'm not trying to be equal to them. I want power. Think about.
I want to talk about just add on in the old English back in when Haiti first kicked off, right? When they got power, and also when Black people started to get voting rights, and take over the politics in the South, right? It was the same 1800s. They called it Negro supremacy. And supremacy is basically sovereignty. It's when you control the politics and the resources of your area. So sovereignty, supremacy is the same thing. So when you start to organize and take over things, they'll start calling you racist just for having a cultural club and being successful. They're going to put that psychological trick in. Some Negroes will give it all up because they called you a name. But that's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to organize.
Yep, we're supposed to be organized and we're supposed to stay organized, right? So when I was talking about I reach back to the past to find some success, even though we might say it was minimal, but reach back to the past and find some success. And let's see what they did, see the mistakes they made, and let's see the good that they did, and let's implement it today in 2021. You understand what I'm saying? Instead of just holding on, they did this, they did. What are we going to do? It's our time now. It's our time. And if we truly believe that we are as great as we say we are absolutely failing our ancestors who put in this work for us to get this little freedom that we have, who put in the work to show us. We see the businesses that the UNIA had. We see what Booker T. Washington did down at Tuskegee, Rosewood, Black Wall Street in Tulsa, Oklahoma, Wilmington, North Carolina, Mountain Bayou, Mississippi. So let's go back and look and see what they did. Let's study our past success, right? So we can come together and so when we talk, we don't always have to talk about the white supremacists stopping us from doing this. The white supremacists are stopping us from doing that. Well, they're in our way. Well, look what they did to us. We're going to remove the crutch. The only crutch that we're going to have is each other. So when we see somebody failing or about to fall, we're going to lift them up and we're going to hold them up. We're not going to use the crutch saying we can't do nothing. I see Sir Joe, I'm going to hold him up. Come on, bro, I got you. We're going to do this together. And that's how it's supposed to be. So I'm going to put this information. I'm still putting this information in the chat. So if anybody's interested, the Council of Igbo States of America, I'm putting their phone number and their email in there. And this is something I think if we truly love Africa the way we say, if we truly want to go back to the motherland, if we truly want to live in the motherland or be here and do business in the motherland and work with our people through the diaspora, let's reach some of these people and let's talk to them. That's what we have to do.
The funny thing about it is there's a lot of funny things about the UNIA ACL people don't understand in the Pan-African or conscious community. With the whole movement, it was started in the 1800s, right, or the 1900s, fresh out of slavery. The people who were organizing, a lot of their parents were born in the grandparents were born in Africa, or they had their own lodges based on whatever tribe they were from. And that, they call them friendly societies. So there's a Fulani society lodge, there was a Yoruba lodge, an Igbo lodge, a Congo lodge. And you still see them some places in Jamaica or Haiti. But they put their lodges together, and that's what became the UNIA ACL when they came over here. That was their grandchildren put them together and said, we're just Negroes now. And then they merged with Booker T's format. He had the Negro Business League, or National Negro Business League. So he was basically the national black president. So he said, let me take this and form a government style thing. And he said, let me draw on African fundamentalism, empires. The British, let me copy the British and form a black empire, a Caribbean empire. So he was throwing a lot of African, British, kings, business. He was throwing it was like a jambalaya. He threw a lot of stuff in there that people not gonna figure out what it is or what the ingredients were, unless they take years to study.
You know, something you just said when you said the British, and it make me, because I say, you know, I talked to a couple of my people, and they're like, me and Guy, CJ in the chat, and Sister Newly, we'll talk on the phone, right? And And we'll all say, even though there's different conversations with different people, but we all say that it's okay to study the people that's been in control, dominating whatever, right? It's okay to study what they have done. It's okay to study them and learn from them and take advantage of every opportunity that they have put out there for us to build our own. And that's what we have to do. So let me ask you something, Shazaro. Okay now that if I put the link in the chat, because there was a couple people that wanted to come on and speak to you, is that okay to talk about this?
Yeah. Before you do that, I just wanted to add one last comment about the African Caribbean or the cultural community. Back then, Liberia, Haiti had presidents, but Haiti started as an empire, and then there was Ethiopia that had the military. So Garvey never really saw as much politics as we're dealing with now, and flags and Nigerian versus Kenyan and this versus that. Garvey never dealt with that. So he was actually the second in command to a potentate, basically a black emperor or black pope. That's in the Constitution where we have rulers, or the original UNIA Constitution has rulers and monarchs. He had one from Dahomey, the Haitian, voodoo, basically home of voodoo. That was the original pope. He was supposed to set up the cultural institution, but he got chased out or shamed out of participating. And the next person was a politician. And he born in Africa, but he didn't know anything about the culture, so he didn't set up anything. Then went to Christianity in Ethiopia, and that wasn't a culture. That it was a lot of it was like 3 failures in a row to set up a cultural organization for diaspora. And that's the role of the emperor in the UNIA, but it never got set up. And people now connect him to Nkrumah and presidents, and that's not what it was. It was a monarchy, basically. A lot of people troll, try to steer it back to presidents and politics, but it's a monarchy. It's about, it says rulers in the Constitution. So that's
okay.
What it's about. Yeah. But yeah, I talk to people, the family.
Ben Uko, you still out there, Ben Uko? I'm gonna put it in the chat, put it back in there. If anybody else wanna if anybody has something they want to talk about the union, have a couple of questions, I'm putting the link in the chat right now. And if you come on, let's see, talk about, creating power for ourselves. That's the biggest thing. We have to create power for ourselves. So it's
a Biafran dude.
Always have to go to other people for a job. You understand? Always.
Yep. I hate that.
Yeah, we have to go to other people for everything, right?
Damn shame. Yep.
Brother Guy, I know he love to talk about it. If he want to come on, anybody who want to come on, y'all can come on and ask some questions. Brother CJ or Newly, Erica, Water, or Lafayette, whoever want to come on, y'all come on, Sister Raw. If y'all want to come on and talk to this brother about this, I put the number and the email in the chat twice. The Council of Igbo States of America. I have that. So
I have the actual like organizer. He's well connected in back in Nigeria, but in Biafra land. But I actually have the president's phone number, or he's like one of the head chiefs. You got the Osiris feathers if you see it and see his picture. But they're actually doing projects in Atlanta already, and I think South Carolina. They work with the DNA tested Africans. So they've been doing work connecting people to the traditions before, but we haven't started anything together. But they're the type of people who'd be willing to if they saw people ready to enter the dojo. So,
hey, something. I don't know if this guy was a part of the Igbo States of America, but I know you heard me say this before. I've said it because it was on Brandon channel and we were talking about it, right? But I remember, I never forget, it was at the barbershop. And I was in there talking to him. They were Igbo. Remember what I was talking? And the guy, he said it was me. And we talked for about 10, 15 minutes, and he had a translator talking to me. I didn't know he could speak English until I gave him a pound and said I was ready to go, and he stopped. and was like, yes, you're my brother, you're African. And he was like, what business you say you have? I said, I'm like, you can speak English? He was like, yeah, I just wanted to see what you had to say. And he was like, tell everybody here who's Igbo. He literally, within that 10 minutes, got me 150 trash customers. Tell everyone here that we have to use him. I don't care who they have. Whoever they have to fire them and call him. I didn't even know. We were just talking. I didn't even know he could speak. Because every time I would talk to him, the one guy would translate to him, and then he'll speak back to him in Igbo, and the guy would talk to me in English, and he was like, man, I understood everything you said. I understood everything you said. But yeah,
you really got customers like that? You really got customers like that? You really got?
He was. They say he was the chief, and he gave me customers. Yeah, for real.
Hey, that's the Chamber of Commerce right there.
Because we were talking, and I'm like, yeah, I'm African. I know I'm African. I'm from here. I know I'm. And he was talking, yeah, you know. So the guy who was translating was saying a lot of black people here, a lot of African Americans don't want to be African, so on and so forth, right? And I was like, well, I'm not one of them. And that's basically what he was doing. After he let me know, he was trying to see what I was going to say.
Yeah.
Hey, CJ, come on. Hey, yo, he said, were you born on the continent or were you born here?
I was born in L.A. That's why I was anticipating Brandon. He probably ran into my folks down there.
Yeah.
L.A.
That's like you do go on Brandon's channel sometime too, don't you?
Yeah, man. Tupac.
Yeah, I was anticipating him too. I know I'll see him when next time he do a show and ask him what happened.
You must have ran into them Crips or something.
So how often do you go back to Nigeria or go to Nigeria?
I don't go back often. We're trying to set this up first, where it's the UNIACL is considered a government, and in Africa, or where I'm from, we have something called autonomous communities, right? Mm-hmm. So these are basically communities or kingdoms or villages, towns that the government said, you know, you're really independent and really can't develop you, so it's up to you to develop yourselves and make partnerships to develop yourselves. So that's what I'm doing. And as far as we have an issue with security now, that traces back to Arabs. I don't know. It's I haven't gone back because there's a lot of issues that Pan-Africanism or, you know, African fundamentalism or Black imperialism has to solve before I feel comfortable there, or anybody should feel comfortable there.
In Nigeria?
I could tie this. I could talk for hours because I got a partner down here, or an associate named Baruti Katembo, right? And we came up with similar ideas at around 2018. He calls his the Bantu Federation, where he's seeing Africa's cultural identity as being called Bantu. And that it's a ancient, you know, Kemetic Congo type of situation where people say we're the real human beings. If you go through rites of passage and you become a black belt, you're a real human being. So that's our original concept of building societies and nations and empires and economics. Is like you gotta be a real black person. So that's even deeper than the word African. And he's a part of a whole cipher of people to rename things and take over the continent for our interests. And with how we came into contact, or as we came into contact, we found out that the Igbo are the largest group that's considered Bantu by the Nigerian politicians, but it's starting to get out in the political space that we're like the biggest central group in Central Africa. We connect the Niger, the Nile, and the Congo. So, you know, Congo, South Africa, Zulus, Kenya, Tanzania, all these guys. Basically, Igbo land is the heart of Africa. A lot of people think it's Congo, but it's really Igbo land. There's like I said, we travel along rivers. So this place called the Bida Biafra, right? The bay or the coast. The Biafra, there's a whole war about it. But this place, Biafra, it's like the Portuguese named it, but this area where the Igbos stay at and surrounding tribes. this is where the Bantu migration really starts. So all the Zulus, the Congos, you know, people in Tanzania, Kenya, Gabon. Biafra is like the tip of all that, and they got the biggest tribe that's connected to the diaspora. So the diaspora plug in there, and automatically, as far as Pan-Africanism or Black nationalism, it's going to filter down to Gabon. It's going to filter down to Cameroon, to Kenya, to Tanzania with the Arabs, and it's going to filter down. And then you got the Bantus, one cultural group, the Nile, Ethiopians, they're another cultural group that stretches into Nigeria. You have the Yoruba and Ashanti and the Khans, Ghana, they're all one cultural group. That's called Oduduwa, or the House of Oduduwa. And then the last group that's really big is the Senegambian river tribes. And those are the Mali empires, the Fulani, the Hausa, Liberia, even is part of that, Songhai Empire. So I listed about 4 cultural groups that cover the whole continent. And the thing is, when you want to unite people, only reason to unite is to fight a bigger opponent, right? So so a lot of Negroes don't want to fight. They want to go in a shrine and say, this is culture. I'm praying to a war god, but I don't got an army.
Hey, you know what? You said that. I got to put this back up with Water Lafayette said, reach back and find some courage. You can't run anything if you're so afraid of the enemy. Did you get paranoid as soon as your phone line tripped?
I talked to one of my elders, man. I said, what's going on, man? These guys ain't joining or leading. They said a lot of these people, these spiritual people, they just use their powers to, you know, get somebody to sleep with them or a love potion. They're not on what we are. It's military, talking about militaries and gods of war and stuff. They just pump faking. So I just kind of, and they'll get mad at you so I kind of gotta stay in the house sometimes. I don't go run like these Negroes.
And one of my homeboys, one of the guys in the chat got another question. They said, "Were you embraced by the people the first time you went?"
Yeah, that's why I'm basically first generation, so I went straight to my village. Yeah, I was embraced. But the diaspora, you know, you guys are celebrities. You know, the Holocaust, all energy can't be destroyed. So all that Holocaust fire that you guys got in you, 200 million strong, even one person shows up, you know, that could spark something. Yep. So you guys gonna be treated well. Royalty, kings and queens, same thing. No, what they call it, the cavalry. The cavalry. So they say, hey, let's get busy.
You know, this is very important what you're talking about, man. It's wish more people were seeing it. This is very, very important what you're talking about. You know, it made me think about, you know, what's his name? He just passed from Zimbabwe a few years ago. Mugabe. And what Nkrumah, both of them, they said the same thing. We need an African military, not Zimbabwe army, Nigerian army, or Ghanaian army. We need an African military to protect African people, right? And with this African union, with this type of union and the right fires in there, who know what type of power? See, and that's what I'm saying when you say the union and us being a part of this union. And I hope people in the chat that's really into this.
They're calling for it. The politicians are calling. There's one politician, an ambassador from the Caribbean to Nigeria. Nigeria's always been a military state. Even before it was created, they had an Islamic, you know, military state going on, still going on. But there's one of the ambassadors from the Caribbean state. Let's get it on. Every village, every community should start African People's Liberation Army. We got the connection. This is a politician.
That's exactly what we need. And like Nigeria, if I remember correctly, Nigerian is one of the countries that made its own weapons, made its own version. Because I was looking it up. They made their own version.
Maybe
they don't
you
make their
know,
own.
I know maybe they probably do, but I know Biafra they had air-to-surface rocket missiles created in the backyards where I'm from.
Yeah. See, in that.
Yeah, they were refining petrol in their
So do y'all hear
backyards.
this? See, this is something we talk about all the time. We don't have no protection nowhere in the world. But this union, there's no telling what we can do. So it wouldn't just be protection everywhere in the world. It would be respected everywhere in the world. And that's what we're supposed to have. You got the protection, then that protection gonna create that respect. That's what we're supposed to have as a people. Go ahead.
Africa isn't what people want it to be, but it's what people need it to be. Because every culture you see, you can name from Kemet to Yoruba to Shanti, Dahomey, Igbo, Congo. All these groups were basically they started off as gangs and military networks. You know, bandits. They took some land and they started refining it, making it look pretty. But these are basically the world is ran by gangs in Africa. When we say Senegambia, we say Bantu, we say Ethiopian or the Nile, and we're talking Oduduwa. We say all these groups covering Africa are in Nigeria. So we call a family reunion with the diaspora coming in through Igbo land. That's 5 tribes that cover the whole Western Hemisphere and the continent coming together in an organized fashion. No debating, no sissying out. But we're coming in as a military organization, not just a culture for the. It's not a church. We're doing it for a practical reason. But we have rituals and things like that.
Our livelihood, our offsprings. We're doing it so we can live, and so our kids and our grandkids and great grands and everybody can be good. It's our home. It's our land. It's not the Chinese. It's not the Europeans. It's not the Arabs, the Lebanese, or none of them. It's ours. And this is an opportunity for us to contact and reach out so we can become part of what belongs to us. People came in, we failed. They took it. It's time for us to get it back.
Hey, I'll tell you one thing, man. It's funny because I started this 3 years ago, but the Caribbean and African Union Summit just happened. And they're coming out saying they need our help, people's on the ground's help, because they got all these political positions and this and that, but they don't even have people on ground that are listening to them as far as organizing or connecting with the people culturally in Africa. It's the ego of, I mean, these guys are Igbos, we say. It's they don't have any kings. They don't listen to nobody. So you could be the president in Barbados and say it's time to connect to Africa. You give out an instruction, but a lot of people won't listen to that. So they're saying, anybody who got a plan and it works, come on down. They're really bum rushing the African Union, really, because it's really an Arab League versus the disorganized Black people. That's what the African Union is. So it's saying anybody who can organize Black people, Marcus Garvey, you got a new Marcus Garvey plan, come on down, because we're building a bridge, but Chinese could come, Lebanese could come, anybody could come and take advantage with these free trade agreements and these summits. But we want the Black people to get this stuff right. That should
be us. It shouldn't be nobody else. That should be us. That should be us. So my brother from the chat had another question. He say, is xenophobia as prevalent as the media makes it out to be?
Xenophobia, I would say with xenophobia, it's actually what it is people not following Ma'ats or the tribal laws. For example, if you go to South Africa, right, the first thing you're supposed to do is go to Zululand and pay respects to the kings and pay tribute with your business, make a business deal. But what people do is say, this isn't Zululand, this is South Africa. I gotta do business with the Boers. I gotta do business with this random guy on the street. I got to set up my business. I got to beat up the poor people, that poor natives, or separate myself from them because it's just South Africa's business. And then when the Zulus get mad and blow up and say, this ain't African, this isn't Ubuntu, then people say xenophobia. But it really was people being off code from day one, and they got checked. And I'm saying that as a Nigerian, they know the protocol as far as the culture. You're supposed to meet with the local leadership and set up a conglomerate.
The media make it like they just going out and attacking them for no reason. And like they
that's South Africa, but Zulus, that's Shaka Zulu's land. So if we really organize, what do you think is going to happen if the media puts that out? Like, this is how you organize. What do you think is going to happen after we organize with the Zulus? Of course, they're going to put it out as xenophobia. They're not going to say this is how Black people organize. Yeah. You know that after step A is, you organize, step B it's not going to be pretty. So that's South Africa. But then in Nigeria, with the Igbos and the Yorubas, the Hausa, what's happening is it goes back to the Moors, Mauritania, Senegal, Senegambia. The Senegambian river tribes are right on the coast of West Africa, and they're right below Europe. So what happened was when these Fulani, it literally means raider or nomad, these guys made a deal with Arabs in North Africa to go up to Europe and take over on some gangster stuff. And that's what you call the Moorish Empire. So when it backfired and Christianity came and the Moors got chased out, the Arabs, the Blacks, they pushed them down into Mauritania. And that's where you still have the tawny Moors and the white Moors and the Black Moors. The Black Moors on bottom. So it's not white people or Europeans on bottom now, it's the Black Moors. And that's the Fulani, the Mali Empire, these people, the Moors who went up from Mali and Senegal, Gambia, they're basically slaves now, in Mauritania especially, but they're pushing them down into Nigeria. So the raiders or the Fulani or the nomads are going into different lands in South Africa and saying, since you Black people aren't helping us take over North Africa and take over Europe anymore, we're going to take over your land just to survive. So that's just a gangster sit down that got to take place. And nation of, or the UNIAACL has a terms of agreement or a good faith where you're saying we're pledging allegiance to be Black first. So it's nothing to get the Fulani leadership at the table and say, this is the plan as far as how we're going to settle the North African issue. And you got to call your people out of all these land and tribal wars. We got to call this tribe that you killed. We got to call this one. Everybody got to meet at the table. And some tribe, I'll say it straight up, like in Nigeria, the biggest tribe or most influential will probably be Yoruba. So they have a lot of business deals as far as their kings, international politics and business deals. Ghana is actually a branch of Yoruba land, so they run that country, culturally speaking. So it'll be hard to get them to the table, but you'd have to get everybody else at the table before they join and take you seriously. But that sit down can take place, and that's what we set up in our society. Our version of the UNIA ACL is called Egbe Abantu. So it means Black Humans or Righteous Black People Federation or Empire. We got a special version of the Garvey movement that's set up to call all these groups together to sit down and end it for once and for all. But all those groups that you hear about fighting and xenophobia is just in Nigeria mostly because those are like the biggest tribes. They're always fighting because they haven't had that sit down that Garvey envisioned. But you have that sit down, it's over. So that's
let me ask you, would it be the Hausa tribe? Because I'm gonna let me. Can I? I'm saying because right.
The Hausa tribe are great people, but it's funny because Malcolm X had a similar vision. You know, he's off the Marcus Garvey tree. So is Martin Luther King. Both their dads were Garveyites. So Martin Luther King he was the Southern Negro Leadership Conference president before they changed it to Christian because he didn't want to be seen as too revolutionary. But he was the Negro president. Malcolm X said, "This is the organization of African unity. We're going to study Swahili, we're going to study Arabic culture, and we're going to study Hausa culture, so we can be psychologically African again." So he said Hausa because that's the bridge between Africa and the Arab world. But the Hausa community, which is ironic, all their kings in the 1804, same time Haiti was getting busy, they had all their kings slaughtered for practicing animism in their Islam. So they had the voodoo and the Islam mixed together. And the Fulani, the raiders, the Moors came down and said, "We're going to take your land because you're practicing that bullshit." But they got chased out of North Africa, and they said, "This is a come up. Let me kill all you guys because the Arabs are going to back us. You're practicing voodoo in your Islam, and we're killing all your kings. And no more kings. We have emirs." So they have emirates, and people call them caliphates, but we have basically a united emirates in Nigeria right now. And the kings sit there. Emir is a military rule. We don't have House of Kings anymore. So it's basically Fulani, emirs, military rulers backed by Arabia and white Islam ruling over the houses. You'll be hard to see a House of Village chief even at this point. But they're not really the problem. The problem is Marcus Garvey. We have all the reconnaissance and the military plans to solve the problem, but we're not connecting the dots. We're not calling that meeting. Hausa have a problem, Fulani have a problem, Igbo have a problem. We got the document, let's go sit down and say this is the military plan. And but people check out if you don't have all the information. But that's why I'm giving up so much information, like saying it's safe to do this. And that's what we're actually doing in Africa. We got about, I'd say 8 headquarters already planned out. Or I got to count, but we probably got a dozen headquarters planned out in Africa, and everybody's been notified that's what we're going to do. We're just waiting on the diaspora branch to agree to this, because over here, Igbo culture in some places has been banned. In the Caribbean, it's actually been banned because the way we organize is a town union, and you just come together. Of course, during slavery, what do you think they're coming together for? They said we're not waiting for a king anymore. We're just going to elect ourselves, and we're going to get busy. So if you go to the Caribbean, they'll say Obia is banned, but that's what they call their tradition, a traditional way of organizing and seeing the world. So Igbo philosophy in the Caribbean is banned, but that's what I'm giving to you guys over the phone tonight.
Oh, okay. So let me tell you why I asked you the question about the Hausa, right? I have a lot of friends from the continent, right? Nigeria, Cameroon. Those are the main two. I have some from Ghana, from everywhere, Kenya. But I deal with more Nigerian and Cameroonians, right? Because of the restaurant that I go to, the little club, that's what was mainly there. And from my experience, right, every Hausa I ever met act like they had an attitude, man.
Hausa, I've never met a Hausa person. You in Atlanta though, maybe. I think they have a Hausa organization even there. But everyone I ever met, man, act like they had an attitude. So when I go to the restaurant, right? So when I go to the restaurant, and I would ask my friend, I'm like, man, why no Hausa people here? They would always say, man, the Hausa people crazy. We don't want them around. But man, I promise you, everyone I ever met, right, had, like, my daughter best friend is Igbo. So me and her father, I'm cool with my daughter's best friend father, right? He said the same thing about the Hausa. He said before they were able to capture us and put us in slavery, he said them Hausa, most of them Muslims, right? Mm-hmm.
He said they are the ones. He said they are the ones who worked with the white Arabs to show the Europeans where we were. Say so since they didn't do no physical fighting against us, right? He said because they they were telling our plans. He said they would tell plans. They would tell, you know, of course not all of them, right? But it don't take everybody. It only take one or two. You know what I'm saying?
With Islam, because they had the Arab world's backing, early on, you hear a lot that the Christians didn't mess with any Muslims because you're facing the whole Muslim world. So they saw the African traditional societies that weren't connected. They said, let's pick them off. So, you know, that might be true where they said the Hausa say, oh, those where the pagans are. Go get them. So
yep, because he said they didn't physically do fighting. Because see, he was telling me some history. He said you'll never find in books here, right? Because he said it was good to see African Americans interested in African history, right? But he said he never heard none of us talk about how Nigerians had defeated the British for a very long time. And and he said the reasons the British was able to turn things around was they made a deal with the Muslims and the house. And he said in the house, but he was like, man, we defeated them. He said everybody think they just came in and snatched our people up. He was like, no, we defeated them for. He said the war actually went on close to 100 years. He said they didn't just come defeat us. They were on our land. They didn't know nothing. We were destroying them. But he said the Hausa. He said the Hausa. He said because the Muslims, the Arabs. He said the Arabs worked with the white Christians, right? Because they wanted black people out of the way, and Hausa wouldn't get involved because of their religion. Say they chose religion over their own people. They wouldn't help. He said that's actually what turned it around. And he was like, when they tell you mostly Africans, so Africans, and this is what he was telling me. He said they're calling people African who was invaders who had came and was living there, but they were not African. They're calling those Muslims Africans. He said they're not Africans, they were Arabs. But those are the people from Africa that was actually doing most of the help. He's saying Nigeria anyway. And that's what he told me. I don't know.
All right. Yeah, that's a lot of that's true, but also I hate to be devil's advocate, but if you hear about the Igbo and the Yoruba, those names are recent. So before that, we had individual identities, clans, empires that were at war with one another. So Igbo versus Igbo, that might have been village to village. Yoruba versus Yoruba, that could have been this empire versus that empire. Is documented, but everybody was fighting. But at this point in time, you know, it's time. Like I said, the only reason to unite is if you want to fight a bigger enemy. So, you know, people could give that history, but what's the next step? And that's when a lot of people do that.
because it's time to talk about what we're going to do in the 21st century. I just wanted to mention, because it's time to talk about what we're going to do. We have to leave our imprint. What are we going to do? Are we going to change things, or are we just going to talk about how great we once were and leave everything the way it is now? Because I know that we were great people, right? And that DNA is in us now, right? We just have to.
I just responded like I responded because really, when you meet Africans in Africa or from Africa, immigrants, they don't have the fire in them. They don't have a righteous anger or the knowledge or the experience that would make them want to unite on the level that you guys have it. So it's basically willpower. How much do the diaspora want Africa to unite in this manner? Like if I send you the PDF, it says Obako, Indi, Nsoroku, and that means basically order or union of people from the Holocaust. So all the Holocaust energy, organizing it for revenge, basically, or get back.
So that's what they're waiting on from the Caribbean, from South America, from all the Americas. That's what they're waiting on. You, so all of us, I understand that. So that in a sense,
you guys are the fire. Igbo land is the engine or the center of Africa. And you put the ignition on, and then the car gonna drive. We got we got people from the Congo, we got the Pygmies, we got the people from the Nile, we got people from Mali, all in Igbo land and Nigeria. If you know the roots, we call family reunion. Diaspora is the only one missing. That's the fire. So the engine's ready, but you guys gotta bring it.
Yeah. So did anybody in the chat take down the number and the email? Because I know that's why we're here. So did anybody take down that number and that email so we can be part of something that's strong, something that's for us? We say we want it. We got to take it down and go do it.
I mean, at this point, really, because, with us, the Biafra War, where Biafra is basically a synonym for Bantu, Zulus, Congo, DRC, all the wars that Berlin conferences, Biafra is basically connected to it. Haiti, the Haitian priests are still got an Igbo title for them, but basically the government's watching our every move, right? United Nations, the U.S. Supreme Court, they watch us, and they write about how they're watching us. So it's not no secret why some people wouldn't unite, but there's a way to do everything. Like even if the Council of Igbo States turns you down, why not put out a shirt that says we're uniting? Why not just set it up and find somebody in your neighborhood that knows the culture and say, teach me how to do this, teach me how to do that. But with the UNIACL, the regular program, the old program that they have a branch in Atlanta. The president is from Jamaica. The president general is from Jamaica. He's connected to politicians. They're connected to CARICOM, where you can bridge that gap. Basically, fake it till you make it. But if you have that willpower to do it, and you don't take no for an answer, it's going to happen. It's interesting. The particular president general I'm talking about is probably like 4 in America, but when I'm talking about Michael Duncan, his brother-in-law is George Weah, a former soccer player and current president of Liberia. The whole Mandingo Empire situation they got over there. And that's the first country Black Americans created, but they didn't know they were they're building on top of an empire, and things got frisky. They started fighting. But diaspora, having a kingless society, they could organize themselves fast, but they'd have to meet with the kings in Africa, wherever they are, eventually. But it's nothing to start like shirts and talk to the UNIA regular leadership that's the diaspora, and eventually you'll find somebody to work with you as far as the particulars of the culture. Like this is how we create our own gods or temples. This is how we cook our food. This is how we farm. At the same time, what you're doing locally, you create new titles, you create new traditions, or blend them together for whatever works to your environment. But it's nothing to like start a WhatsApp group or put out shirts. We're uniting, and then people will take notice, and it'll start to happen. But one thing I put in the plan is that we're going to organize using sports, basketball in particular. It organizes a lot of people at one time without as much argument as other activities. So we're saying we could create a political economy and culture around basketball. So, and people in Nigeria are already organizing for it. And we're connecting with the Pan-African Daily TV to promote it. So it's going to catch on, but it would be nice if we start something tonight, even a WhatsApp group, and we just ask questions. But it's going to happen one way or another. That's all I got to say.
Yeah, it's going to happen. We have to just keep pushing at it. And when you say basketball, so let me ask you, right? Does Nigeria have one of the teams, NBA Africa? Do they have a team in Nigeria?
But yeah, man, you didn't see the Olympics? They're the first ones that beat.
No, I'm saying, do they have an NBA team?
Oh, NBA? No, NBA is just USA at this point. But the funny thing
But you know,
is,
they're trying to create an NBA Africa, which I thought the NBA
oh,
players
yeah. They do. They have one of those teams, but
they have
with
one in
that,
Nigeria.
yeah, but with the structure, it's not indigenous. Like, let's say you have these people over here. They're united. They got their systems and culture, their comedic systems and all that. What they did is they created teams around the cities or the states where it's not indigenous, and you could have somebody from Morocco come and be on your team. And that's basically the plan. So let's be honest. But what we're doing is something that's indigenous to the people, where they said, where's your king? You got a nation. You got under UNIACL, you're a nation, and your job is to unite Black people, be self-determining. You should have a team. You should use that to organize yourselves and unite Africa. And everybody has a team in their community, and it bridges the gap with the diaspora.
You know who was doing that one time? You know who was doing that in the NBA?
Who?
Serge Ibaka.
Oh, really?
That was the name of his program, Building Bridges Through Basketball. That was the name of his program. You know, he's from the Congo, right? So Pascal Siakam is Cameroonian. It was like he got like 3 players that came through his program that made it to the NBA, and he's helping them get college. And that was the purpose of it. He's building bridges through basketball. Yeah, Serge Ibaka was doing it.
Yep, you can control governments with bouncing the ball. That's how I would put it. Like you see them players that meet the president. You see Trump tweeting about them when they start organizing. You see the president meeting after they win the championship. So that's when you start a basketball program, what do you get? You get people, you get caterers. The caterers get the food from somewhere, the farmers. You get the truckers and the logistics involved. So you got music, you got culture involved. So you around basketball, which you have the right vision, you can create a nation around it. It's just it's been done before as far as wrestling. That's what Africans used to do. Wrestle. Whoever wrestles the chief wins. But at this point, in this era, it's basketball. That's the one that Black USA, the powerhouse has their hands on.
I'm gonna tell you that's one thing. I did a show, Sophisticated Confusion, right? That's what I named it. And that's one of the things, remember during the pandemic and Kyrie Irving saying the players should have an opportunity to be part owners in the NBA, right? Now, for the last 5 years, the NBA said Africa got the second best talent in the world. They better than Europe. This coming from the mouths of people from the NBA, right? They
said what?
Africa have the second best talent in the world behind American basketball. Say the continent of Africa is second to
Hey man, you gotta that's why we got this. You gotta unionize now,
yeah, I know, and that's what I'm saying. While they was arguing, trying to get people in the NBA to give them ownership, I said they should have been going to Africa, starting their professional league, right, with Serge Ibaka. While they were arguing with them about give me ownership in your team, basically was ignoring them, went to Africa and said, we're going to do NBA Africa. So now they have NBA Africa. You see what I'm saying?
Yep. I started this 3 years ago before I ever heard of it. But basketball, I am a basketball player, but
yeah, I know.
That's always been the plan. So Senegambia team, there's going to be a Senegambia section. A Benin or Yoruba Empire section, and that's going to stretch to Ghana. The king already claimed Ghana last week. The Yoruba king, said Ghana because the Fulani are taking over. So he said, "I need reinforcements. Ghana's our land too." So everybody's moving now. East Africa community, DRC is joining. Rwanda, they have beef. Uganda is there. All the chiefs are behind it, so they're going to try and unionize to make all these countries one country, and the indigenous citizens, the Black people, they're basically trying to unionize everything. Ethiopia, Somalia. I know some people.
Hey, we
Yeah,
just had. I think this Brandon just joined, man.
LA.
That looked like his peace, Brandon. What's going on, man?
What's up, man?
Man, I'm glad you was able to make it.
Yeah, me too. I'm gonna get my camera. Okay, so
Yep.
what we talking about?
Well, we were talking about I named the show Equality versus Power, right? And I was talking about us if we ask people to give us equality, right?
Right,
But power is things that we create for ourselves, right?
right,
Zorro was talking about doing something, becoming this, being a part of the union, the African Union, how some of the people from the Caribbean have. So I mentioned you earlier, right? And I was like, this brother is in Africa with OAP buying land. He's not
right.
asking nobody. He's creating something for him, his family, and the people that's part of his organization. And I think creating power is better than asking someone for equality.
Well, it's like this. You want a girl who, when you go look for a woman, do you look for a woman who already know how to fix herself up and beautify herself? Or do you look for a woman who you got to tell her how to beautify herself? You got to tell her what to wear and all that type of stuff. That's not supposed to work because she may or may not accept your suggestions or your advice. So, I used to be an old backwater preacher. And in the Bible, it said that you have to, do the work and show yourself approved, right? So the work that you do is what's going to validate you. The work that you do on your own is what's going to validate you more than this idea that you're going to be able to go and ask somebody for like acceptance. And our people have a big problem with that. We always want somebody to accept us. You don't want that. You want people begging you to be a part of what they're doing. You know what I'm saying? And that's when you're truly going to be operating from a position of power.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And that's what I want to talk about, us like creating it. Because I remember you did your show and you challenged these so-called elbows. Come on, let's talk about who doing. What are you doing? You see what I'm saying?
Right.
And that's why I mentioned like, you're creating power, right? So when I mentioned this sister Blue, she's not in the chat tonight, but she started her own online temp service, right? So she's helping people get jobs at home. That's her creating power for herself. And at the same time, she's helping her people get jobs,
Right.
That's creating power.
Right. And then when she goes to walk up to, if she does decide to ask for something, she already has a resume of things she did on her own. So people know like, okay, at least this person's willing to put in the time and the effort to get things done. Because someone, they say, be careful what you wish for, right? That's playing out all over the continent right now. Because you got a bunch of people who they thought they were going to be able to like sell people land and do all these big projects and stuff, right? And they thought they wanted Black Americans' money. But then they didn't realize that once you give Black Americans money, you got to deal with Black Americans. See what I'm saying? and that's one of the reasons why OAP is successful. And you don't hear nobody talk about OAP scam me and all, because I know who I'm dealing with. You money. I know all the tricks. So it's better for us to do work on our own and be asked. And I got one more Bible scripture for you. There's a scripture where Jesus talked about when you invited to a wedding feast, don't go sit in the best seat in the house, right? Go sit in the worst seat in the house. And then if someone asks you, to come and sit in the best seat, it'll be a great honor, as opposed to sitting in the best seat in the house and they tell you you need to move because somebody greater than you has walked in who is more entitled to that seat. Just go take the worst seat in the house and work and build from the bottom up. And then when people see what you're doing, they're gonna ask you to move to the place of privilege. They're going to ask you, even with the ADDI stuff, I wouldn't even be okay with that. I would want to establish my own first. So the ADDI says, we want you to be a part of this, B. And I say, okay, well, what you going to give me? What position, what power position am I going to be able to occupy within your structure? That's what we got to do. Because Black people don't need no more people bringing us in and keeping us in suspense while we waiting on them to do the hard work. We got to do the work. So when we go in, they already know what we about, and they know they can't mess around with us. Does that make sense?
Yes, that makes sense. Can you explain, because the people in the chat don't know, explain exactly what OAP is, and if you would have like your email or something they could contact if they wanted to be a part, I guess.
First of all, none of you guys can be an OAP. No, OAP stands for Our Africa Plan, and OAP is just the manifestation of a vision that I have to own land in every African country by 2060, right? OAP was just basically created out of need, out of like necessity. I saw a lot of people. We were on a channel called African Tigress, doing the whole trauma bonding thing. And I noticed a lot of people in the chats were like, we want to buy land in Africa. And then I noticed like people were complaining about how they got scammed. This person scammed them. And, you know, they scared to invest. So I said, look, I've been going to Kenya for about 6 years. I know some people. I know some real estate people. I got a lawyer. You know, I got businesses in Kenya. I can facilitate, you know, the purchase of some land for these people to get the land they want. And let's put it like this, Brother Bakari. I made that decision in my mind. And in 6 months, 65 became landowners in Africa. So
congratulations, brother.
That's all OAP was. It was just one person out of, I think, 400 people who were on that chat, just deciding to stop talking and just start doing. That was pretty much it. But also a person who had experience and who had done his due diligence in that country. We have people over here following people. They've been in the country 2 weeks, and all of a sudden they trying to sell something. I don't care if you in America. You cannot go into real estate for 2 weeks and start selling people houses. You can't. You got to get verified and vetted and educated. Only this is a new phenomenon where somebody say, well, they've been in Gambia for 3 days. I guess I'll send them $75,000 for a piece of land. That doesn't happen, not in real life, not in the real world. So OAP was kind of like just a responsible Black man making an honest move to help his people. And that's all it takes. Accountability, you know, and honesty. If you have those two things, it'll be a success. If you fail, it's because one of those two things was lacking.
You know what it sounds like to me, Brandon? And you know me, I've been on your channel, and I know you're younger than me, and I respect you, right? It sounds like you decided to remove the crutches, the excuses saying they won't let you do this and they won't let you do that. You decided to remove all that and say, you know what? Whatever obstacle they put in my way, I got to figure a way to get around it because I want to be better.
That's exactly what I did. And you know what one of the craziest things is, Brother Bakari? You would not believe how many people be on these YouTube channels, in these panels, and in these comment sections talking major crap, and they were in OAP and was the first people to drop out. But they on the internet talking about, oh, we need to buy land, we need to do this and do that and do this. It's like you were a part of something good, and you dropped out. You dropped out. And they look, OAP secured the land in 6 months, Brother Bakari. How like, what type of person don't even give something 6 months to manifest? And it was a 2-year projection. I was like, I'll have you to land in 2 years, 24 months. I got them to land in 6 months, Brother Bakari. But they over here talking about Black Power and we need our own cities and we gonna go to Africa and build our own Wakanda and all that kind of crap. Look, bro, you can't even maintain the course for 6 months.
Yo,
And that's why I said we need to build on our own, because one thing I would hate to see happen is another country or an organization in Africa put faith in us only to see us destroy that organization through infighting and people who just really never had any real plans on doing anything, destroyed it from the inside out. So that's why I say people have to vet themselves by building a resume. We want to know projects completed. Ain't nobody gonna hire a construction worker who got no resume. Ain't nobody gonna hire unless he gonna just be carrying bags of cement. Ain't nobody gonna hire a home builder, a house builder, who ain't never built a house or don't got no resume. You at least gotta come with a resume of houses you've helped build, right? So Black folks right now, I would say we're putting together our resume in Africa right now. So we got to do for self first and prove that we're self-sustainable, like we're self-sustaining. Then I feel like it will be okay. Only then do I feel like it will be okay for us to really go and entertain the offers or a membership to anything else.
Oh, okay. I got you. You know, I've shown you on here before about OAP when we was talking about what should be represented as pro-Black or pro-Black and Pan-African, because you know they always find a degeneracy to try to represent Pan-Africanism or B1, right? So you were one of the I showed this guy in Gambia who started the coffee business. You know, people that I respect. You understand what I'm saying? Who's actually trying to do something for the people, who's not trying to just figure out a way to take people money and put it in their pocket. Because if they Google our Africa plan, they could just go in there and Google search our Africa plan, and they can actually see, because it come up, and they can actually see some of the things that you're doing, homesteads in Kenya. So yeah, you know, I appreciate that.
Yeah, I got distracted. Jill, she got caught up on the delivery, man. She said everything I said. She blocked her ears off. Oh, how many N's did he call? Jill, if you don't like the fact that I use the word Negro, why don't you start something and you can control the language of your culture? Nobody's stopping you. You don't got to be a part of what I'm doing. But I'm saying, like, if you have a higher standard when it comes to delivery or the language used, my sister, my queen, ain't nobody stopping you. Get it cracking.
Hey man, you know what? She never been in my chat, man. You know what? She followed you over here. I got somebody else to watch my channel. They followed you to say that to you. She followed you to say that to you.
I'm not about the excuses, man. If your boss was at your job paying you $200,000 a year, and you heard him on a conversation saying, "I don't like N-words," you're not quitting your job. You're gonna act like you didn't even hear it. I know you want to quit, but I ain't giving up this paycheck. But when I say all bets are off, Brandon used the N-word. Not, you know what I'm saying? He used the N-word. That generation is over. He used the N-word.
Oh,
how do you win like that? How do you? Some of the people you admire the most. Like I was watching this interview with what's that lady's name who used to date Michael Jackson? She a singer.
Madonna?
No, she black. Back when he was still black. What's her name? She sings Fire and Desire.
Shaka Khan? I don't know.
Nah, it's this other. I forget her name. But
before my time.
Yeah, she was like, she dated Michael Jackson. They had like a relationship. And they asked her, they said, does Michael Jackson say the word nigga? She said, Mike says nigga all the time. Now,
Gary, Indiana.
but when we look at his look, right? But when we look at Michael Jackson, the way he portrayed himself in public, you would never think of Michael Jackson using that word. See what I'm saying? So it's like, the thing about YouTube is the people who you listen to and you follow, you get to learn who they really are. We want who people pretend to be, but we don't want who they really are, right? But if you know, but if someone was attacking her in a dark alley and I was walking by and she needed my help, she wouldn't care if I used the N-word or not. She'll be using the N-word. Cursing the out.
Yo, the thing with the N-word is you can't separate it from English. It's so if you want to stop the N-word, learn Swahili or learn the African language. It don't roll off the tongue when you're pronouncing Wadugu or Nyusi, Wanyusi. So if you want to learn another language, do it. The N-word in English is here to stay. And you got cuss words for black people in every language, every Western language. So that's what it is.
But
A or B.
But this is the thing, right? Brandon hadn't said the N-word not one time. He hadn't said the N-word not
said Negro.
Yeah, you said Negro. He hadn't said the N-word not one time when they put that in the chat. But Jill, I'm glad you're here. Like I put in the chat, smash that subscribe button and hit the notification bell.
Like that goes back to the whole eugenics and conservative thing. Marcus Garvey got pushed out for promoting Negro, basically, because he's talking about the real black people, where everybody's saying colored or people of color. He had to deal with that back in his day, and so when people say Negro, they know what you're talking about. So that's something deep. No. If you want that people of color thing going on. But Garvey said a lot of he cut to the bone when he was talking about mixing races, but that might be something going on.
Wait a minute, Brandon. Let me say this. No, Jill, I'm not making an excuse. And yes, we did have I did a show on this the other day. You're correct about the N-word and how I don't use it and how I think it should be. But the point that I'm making, Brandon hadn't said the N-word. He hadn't said the N-word not one time when you put that in the chat. He had not used it one time, and he still only used it once. I'm not making an excuse. I'm not doing it, but what I'm saying is he hadn't used it. So maybe he came over and was respecting my channel. Maybe he saw the show and was like, you know what? Bakari don't disrespect me on my channel. And if this is something he said, I'm not going to disrespect him. He hadn't said it not one time. But I do understand what you're saying. I'm not making excuses.
That's what I said. I that's what I told myself. I was like, of course, when I go to someone else's channel, I can't say that, NIGGA. But the whole point is, Brother Bakari, when I was in high school, my teachers talked a certain way. Then when I got to college, my teachers would say curse words, right? When I went out on the football field, my coaches would use curse words. And I said, and even as a kid, 17 years old, 16 years old, I understood something. I said, see, in the classroom, these teachers have to be a certain way. They're not really giving you who they really, truly are. They're giving you who they are as a teacher at that moment. Those coaches, you was seeing who they really were, right? So, and those were the ones who really wanted you to succeed at something where that was football. But me, I don't follow people. I don't vote for people. I follow policies. I follow principle. That's what I look at. No one's perfect. And I think a lot of times in our community, we're looking for these perfect people. But when you look for a perfect person, 9 times out of 10, you're going to be the one that gets scammed. Because I can get up here with the proper vernacular and yes, my sister, and we have to fight this and the white supremacy. But guess what? All the guys talking like that ain't doing nothing, right? So sometimes you got to deal with the guy who might not be your cup of tea, but he's doing the work, or doing it yourself. But yeah, no disrespect to anybody. I don't want to make this all about the N-word. I don't want to make this all about, because we have to learn sometimes to just, before we say anything, do what's best for the greater good. Like me personally, I'm not Jill, but there's no way in hell I would be sitting in a chat and because someone said something I don't like, try to divert the whole conversation away from the productive aspect into a matter of a preference. He likes this word, I don't like that word. See, that's a maturity issue. Because if a white man got up there and said asshole, she'll sit there quietly. She'll be chomping on her gum hard because she didn't like what he said, but she wouldn't dare stand up and interrupt the meeting to correct her boss if he mispronounces a word, right? But that's what we do, because at that point it ceases to be about us. Now it's just about me. I was offended, so now I'm gonna disrupt the comments by telling everybody, well, I'm offended, And I'm not saying that to single her out, but this is what we're dealing with. At the end of the day, that's a microscopic issue that really is neither here nor there. But everybody can't go. Everybody's not gonna get it. Everybody's not gonna understand. Some people are just gonna get left behind because they like Lot's wife in the Bible. They can't stop looking back at how they can't stop thinking about how unfair it is. They're not like, let's just move towards progress. So until we get there with, like, as a people, we gonna just be, you know what I'm saying? There's gonna be very few of us,
Yeah. It's like I was born in LA and raised in Riverside, right? But before I ever heard of Marcus Garvey, the person who put me on was Tupac. He was an activist, and if you can probably know this, if you trace the street gangs, they go back to Black Panthers, they go back to Marcus Garvey. But the NWA, all these guys, a lot of them are Garveyites. So they're actually ready to put in work if the bookworms actually got a plan. What's the dude's name? Ren, MC Ren. He got the song called Black Starliner.
Right.
But all these bookheads, they don't have a plan. Like, there's literally no, I said it before you came on, there's no organization, a Pan-African organization or conscious organization with a branch here and a branch in the Caribbean. Maybe the UNIA, the Ethiopian Rasta Federation. But really, you don't have any. They talk a lot, but they don't have no organization that you can really come to. So, it's a comment.
It's like that. We just gotta let people grow, at their own pace, and we just have to make room for people. Like, that's one thing. Like, I was in management for 10 years, and I realized if you try to police everything everyone does, you're not going to be able to get the job done. There's going to be guys who do things that just piss you off. Yeah. But the guy gets the job done. So it's a compromise. I've been married for almost 15 years. You think there's things my wife does that I don't like? Of course there are. But I compromise. So I'm gonna just need everybody, whoever has anything to say to me, just compromise. You know what I'm saying? I'm listening to the white man, so just compromise so we can all move forward. Don't
I'm listening.
Small stuff.
The sister is funny. One love to the sister in the chat, but it's funny because history repeats itself. One of the criticism Garvey got is that he doesn't love Black people because his strategy was reverse psychology. He'd insult Black people in general And so his crowd or his followers would say, we're not like those black people. Like he said, if I depended on black people to transport me by train or pay my fare, I'd be walking all the way to the convention or whatever. And then the crowd would cheer because they say, yeah, most black people are lazy, but we're here to do the work. So it's reverse psychology a lot. But he got deported. He got deported, and he said the N-word. He said the N-word a couple times. So maybe Garvey ain't good enough.
He's a practice in the if it don't apply, let it fly, right? So he knew by saying that. And I didn't quote the Bible a lot on here, but I'm gonna quote it again. Even when Jesus talked to his disciples and he talked about only those who eat my flesh and drink my blood, right? A lot of people didn't understand what he meant. So they stopped following him, right? And he looked at his main group and was like, are you guys going to leave too? And they were like, where are we going to go? You talking about everlasting life. I'm going to give that up because I didn't like the language that you used. I didn't understand what you said, but I'm going to walk away from this living forever stuff to go into nowhere because I didn't understand, right? And Brother Bakari, I'll get you 10 subscribers to make up for that one you lost. Don't worry about that. But, see what I'm saying?
Yeah, man, this is good. But I'd like to say something on Kenya, because Kenya, Uhuru Kenyatta, you know, people don't know, but he's like a crown leader back. They got a lot of traditions they keep under the rug, but he's helping spearhead the CARICOM and African Union connection. So Kenya's a really good spot. And at the same week, he came out and said Ethiopia is joining. You know, people like to say they don't like Bantus or they don't like sub-Saharan Africa. Ethiopia is joining, Somalia is joining the East African community. And this is basically they said, look at our cultures, we're similar people. Let's become one nation. And, you know, the Garveyism is going to come to a point where they say, you know, or just the structures, they're going to say like these ethnic groups are indigenous to the land and or the real citizens of whatever state we create. It's not going to be the same, you know, Chinese Kenyan is equal to a black Kenyan. Because you can't go to Kenya and claim citizenship and start owning land and doing it. Basically, the table's going to turn, and Kenya is a real big part of what they're doing in East Africa.
Kenya is, I like Uhuru Kenyatta. I think Kenya, you know, the leadership of Kenya is smarter than we think they are, you know, and Uhuru is one of those ones who more times than not, you know, has stood up to the outside, you know, influence when they try to get him to do certain things. And, you know, they've attacked him, you know, so that certainly doesn't endear him to them. But, yeah, I think CARICOM is a great idea. I just think that, as with all good ideas, it just needs the right people and it'll be a success. Because in many ways, we already practice all the things that we're trying to basically just write on paper. Like, if you go to Kenya, a Chinese person is not going to get preferential treatment over a Black American. It doesn't work like that. You know, that's only in the United States, you know. It's already B1 in Africa. So when people are like Africans ain't B1, it's like if all there is B's, there's no B1. We're all Black. So that's one thing I like about that place. But yeah, what was the title, Brother Bakari?
Equality versus power.
Oh yeah. There's no such thing as equality. There ain't two things on this planet that's equal. That's for sure. No, there's not. Right? There's not. There's even a saying about the guy who invented the Colt, or the guy who invented the Smith & Wesson or something. And they were like, God didn't make all men equal, but the gun did or something like that. There's always going to be somebody bigger, faster, stronger, got more endurance than you. Like, why do we have sports if all men are equal? Sports prove we're not equal.
Yeah. Olympics. Hey, man. Man. Yeah, I mean, with this basketball thing, we talked this African basket or Bantu basketball. We're saying, man, we can't wait for the day all them Black Olympians got a base in Africa, you know, and we don't got to watch us. We look like clowns, you know, when the Olympics come around, to be honest. But one day we're gonna show what we can really do as a team. But that's the vision. But sports is a key, you know. It's that dot in the circle.
Yeah, I don't understand.
Yeah, the best players. Go ahead, Brandon. Go ahead.
No, I don't understand why these brothers in the NBA ain't been did that. You know what I mean? Like,
we talked about it earlier with the cultural community or conscious community. They didn't really build a bridge as far as where the jocks or people who don't know as much about Africa cross over. Like, I talked to some of the traditional or conscious leaders where they told me, you know, they practice the tradition, but they're not even connected to the leadership or the chiefs or the landowners back home. And it's just like, I'll use this, you know, to make a love potion or something. They're not trying to build a military, you know, they got to go out of war, but they're not really using it for that. It's just a lot of pump faking. So what is a jock who spends 10 hours in the gym supposed to do? He's supposed to lead you. And he doesn't. So that's what's going on.
A basketball player, you know, his job is to play basketball. So when the United States had Olympics, they go call the basketball players, y'all go represent the country doing what y'all do best. And so all they really got to do is play basketball. That's all we need them to do. Because what we do is get to play basketball and then use the proceeds garnered from people paying to watch them to nation build. The same way it's done in the United States. You know, because the United States get taxes off the NFL, they get taxes off the NBA, right? So the United States supports those things because they're like, look, we get billions of dollars in tax revenue from these entities. That's all we need them to do. Shut up and go dribble. And y'all charge me for tickets and make sure we get our cut when it's all said and done.
So, Brandon, this is when we was talking. Oh, my bad. Go ahead. I thought you was done. Okay, so this is what we was talking about, right? During the pandemic, I don't know if you remember Kyrie Irving was saying how the players should have ownership in the league, right? And what I was saying is, I'm going to show you, I did a show called Sophisticated Confusion. And I'm going to show you how sophisticated, while black players was asking to give me ownership in your league, right? For the last 5 years, the NBA have been saying the second best talent in the world is in Africa. Africa has surpassed Europe. That's what they've been saying, right, for like the last 5 years. While we were arguing with them, saying, give me ownership in your league, I said they should have been linking up with Serge Ibaka to create a league in Africa. While they were arguing, saying, give me ownership in your league, the NBA went and bought and started NBA Africa.
But look. Go ahead.
When those players who was asking for ownership in their league, they could have controlled the league in Africa with where their people is, right? And the NBA have to come through you to get your talent. You understand what I'm saying? You know the power that you created?
Yeah, this is where we come in, though, because with the whole DNA, the Igbo DNA, and the NBA draft last year, 1 out of 10 players was from Igbo land. So one place in Nigeria. So they're watching that where we're from for basketball. But with Kyrie Irving specifically, it goes back to identity. He identifies as a Native American because on his mother's side, and he's basically initiated into that system. So where's he gonna direct black people to?
But he wear a lot of his African attire. He wear a lot of stuff to represent Africa too, though. I'm just saying he does.
I haven't been paying attention.
Like some of his jewelry stuff, yes. He wears stuff that represent Africa too. His mother was actually raised on a reservation. I think that's how he ended up going back saying Sioux, because his mother was raised on a reservation. I'm not even sure she native.
This is genealogy. This ain't DNA. He ain't doing no DNA test telling
No.
him he's 10 or 20% Native American. This is off of, because Indian identity is just based on records, like written names, right? So his mom was on the reservation, probably was the last, as her ancestors probably slaves for those Indians. But the whole point is, Brother Bakari, people got to see the value in something. And black folks, we look at whatever white folks got as valuable. If white folks ain't interested in it, we not interested in it. Because it's like a white person could pick up a rock and be like, yo, I'm gonna sell this to you for $100,000. And black folks will go buy. There is some black person who will go spend $100,000 of their money to go buy a basic dirt rock that this white man had picked up off the ground. Like, look at the designer clothes. You got Tommy Hilfiger. He's selling a t-shirt like this, but because he put his logo on it, it's $500. And there's black people who will go break their pockets to buy it. So they assign value to things. So at first they were saying, oh, that NBA Africa ain't nothing. And there ain't nothing over there. And they said it just to throw Negroes off. The black man wants to be equal to the white man, even in the NBA. But he'll never be that. How? They got 50 owners, and you think if you get one, that's a step in the right direction. Well, in another 500 years, you might get another one. So you're about 10,000 years off from equality in the NBA.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, that's why we started.
Somebody have to give you equality. They could have took that power if they went ahead and purchased NBA Africa. And I'm gonna be honest, like, I don't know why it hadn't been done. Serge Ibaka started a long time ago building bridges through basketball. He's from the Congo, and you ought to see all these brothers from all these different countries on the continent that came to his program. It's about 4 of them in the NBA now, and the other ones got scholarships to come here and play. Even if they didn't go pro, they finished college. But he's from the Congo. You can find people from Cameroon, Nigeria, everywhere from all those countries coming there to play with him, and it was building bridges because all the different countries were coming together.
Yeah, with the Congo, they don't really have a history of like trying to unite Africa. As far as it's more like when you talk about the Congo, it's more like this state has all the mineral resources. It's not talking about we're all, we're not Native American, we're this tribe, we're all united. Unfortunately, but Congo has a lot of secessionist movements people don't know about. They haven't put 2 and 2 together. But it's either you're secessionist or your Congo is the best country, do our diamonds, and there's no cultural bridging that gets people actively moving, living their life basically as a Congo person. That's the problem. They're not doing there's no bridge basically. That's what we're trying to build. Matter of fact, Congo, the whole Berlin Conference was built around taking them over, and they were the first people to really bridge a gap with Portuguese and Europe, and white people tearing them up right now. They need our help, but even their empire was basically Christianized, and the white people got in there basically started tearing them apart. To this day, some people say the Catholic priests torture the chiefs if they're really Afrocentric. So we're saying you go next door to Nigeria, and you go to Uganda, you go to Kenya, you have better support to eventually get to the Congo. But DRC is joining the East African community under Kenyatta and Kagame. So they're basically saying, we're not going to be one country. We're going to be one country together. So it's not going to be DRC versus Rwanda versus Uganda. It's going to be one country. Ethiopia, Somalia, DRC, Sudan are petitioning to join. So it's going to be a super state. No more all the flag wars. So
So, Brother Bakari, I always want to ask you, what is your? Are you ever planning on going to Africa, or are you just, you committed to working in America?
No. I plan on going to. I'm gonna tell you, man. I would have been gone, right? I plan to go. Me and my wife was planning to go to Ghana together, but my wife passed away, and when she passed away, I didn't want to go no more because she couldn't go with me. She passed away 15 years ago, and because she couldn't go with me, I put it on hold, right? Because we used to talk to my mom. My mom went, she loved it. She said of her, my mom said if she had gone when she was younger, she wouldn't ever come back. She used to go to Ghana, Gambia, Senegal. My mom would actually go live in the bush, where people live the traditional way. She said she actually loved it. She said she actually loved it. She said she actually loved it. But if you was to see my hometown where I'm from in Mississippi, you're gonna be like, oh, she was used to living in the bush anyway.
Yeah, I think I've seen somebody eating I've seen somebody eating green beans with their hands. So my grandma said that's Mississippi style. Is that true?
Yeah, look, collard greens, all that. That's African style. We eat with our hair. The collard greens and cornbread. We eat it with our hands, yes.
Even when I was little, my grandmother would take the cornbread and the collard greens and the tomato, and they mix it up. They mush it all up with their hands and eat it with their hands.
Yeah, that's African style.
Yeah.
What was that?
Like, that was my grandmother is from Mississippi and Georgia.
Okay. Yeah.
But they would take that collard greens and the cornbread and the tomato. They cut up some tomatoes and they mush it all up with their hands and eat it like that. But that was part of our African customs that we were still practicing, that we had lost. Like, we didn't realize why we was doing it.
What's happening, man? The truth is here tonight. The truth is here.
Hardcore wanted to speak to you for a couple minutes before we get off. He wanted to speak to you. Go ahead, Hardcore.
Okay, yeah. So you're trying to tell the people that eating with your hands is an African custom, as opposed to the simplest form of eating is with your hands.
Oh my God.
Is that what you're trying to tell us?
Yes, that's African custom because they still eat like that today.
No, with us, Black Americans.
What do you mean? With us Black Americans? What about it?
Look, Hardcore. You're a native, you're Aboriginal Indigenous, right?
So are you.
No, I'm not.
Yes,
I'm a descendant of African slaves who got off of slave ships, and when they got off, they were eating with their hands.
But
you can be whatever you want.
But you can't prove that, though. That's the difference.
Do you want to get a DNA test?
What is the DNA test going to show you?
Exactly.
Yeah,
there you go. You answered the question yourself.
No. You refuse to believe in science, but you can't prove it, bro.
Okay, tell me what DNA. How's DNA going to tell somebody what African they are, what landmass they come from?
What tribe are you from?
The Muncie tribe. How's that?
Where's that tribe?
New York.
2 weeks ago, you told me you didn't know what tribe you was from.
Yeah, well, I'm giving you one now just so you shut the hell up. Nah, but my mother and her cousin, they know what it is, and it's out of Mississippi though. It's out of Mississippi.
What tribe is that out of Mississippi? Is it Natchez? Is it Yazoo? Is it Choctaw?
I'll be honest with you, I don't know, but they go to the powwows.
Wait, but he's sure he's an Indian, but he don't even know what the tribe.
No. See, it's not that.
What language? Okay, what language do they speak?
Yeah, we're gonna get into that. Matter of fact, in the feature video, we're gonna have people come in and break
No.
down.
No. You say you are that, right? So, what I'm saying is, what language? Name the language.
Oh, I mean, there are a whole bunch of languages. Like the state of Mississippi is a Native American language. State of Connecticut, Minnesota, it's all around you.
Brother Bakari, he doesn't know what tribe he's from.
You notice how they interrupt when that wisdom is being dropped.
No, I think a better question is how many tanks do they got?
How many what?
how many tanks does that tribe got?
Well, I
Military.
mean, well, I think Africa has no tanks, only what they could buy.
They got more.
Because matter of fact, I did a video on African militaries, and they don't make nothing.
But they got more tanks and more planes than that tribe that you claiming. Whether they bought them or they made them.
Let me tell you this, Brandon. The NYPD can defeat any African nation in war.
It definitely could defeat your tribe.
Yeah.
So,
but that's how pitiful. That's how pitiful Africa is. I mean, they can't even defend themselves. The strongest military in Africa is South Africa, Egypt, and Algeria.
So how many fighter jets does the NYPD have?
I think they did get a couple. Matter of fact, they did a video on that a few years ago because they do
fighter jets. You just said the NYPD has fighter jets, bro. Come on.
No, they did get military weapons. There's a 60 Minutes thing on it when they were breaking down the weaponry.
I didn't say weapons. I said
I think your LAPD might have some too.
No, I said how many fighter jets?
Hardcore, let me ask you a question.
Okay.
Hardcore, let me ask you a question. So you say NYPD can beat any African nation. Who was that the USA sent over to Somalia? Was that the NYPD or was that one of your Indian tribes that Somalia kept shooting down? Wait.
No, you asking the question.
Shooting down
that wasn't a full out war. That was just an operation.
It was a skirmish.
And I don't know what the African guy is laughing at because Somalis probably wouldn't even see him as the same people.
They're joining the East African Confederation, man.
Brother Bakari.
Going down.
In Kenya, they got fighter jets. They have fighter planes.
You can get what you want if you got the money to buy it, and you get the secondhand products.
Okay, but you just made one false claim. You said that no African country could beat the NYPD in a war.
Right.
NYPD got no materials to combat fighter jets, tanks, nothing. And Kenya has all those things. So you're just saying.
I can guarantee you these countries have but a handful of jets.
Nigeria have been creating their own weapons since the 1960s.
Somalia. I looked at their weaponry. It's arcade.
Those RPG-7s that were shooting down the Native American helicopters when they went over to Somalia, they were made by the Somalians.
Yeah, but that was like World War I type of designs.
Doesn't matter what it was.
They were fighting people they was fighting the Native Americans, and y'all have not evolved into anything else.
But let me tell you something, though. Let me tell you a secret that you guys may not know about. You know, the Huey helicopters and Bell helicopters in Vietnam. You realize that most of those got shot down? And that's where a great deal of the casualties came from? Yeah, it's easy to shoot down a helicopter. That ain't nothing. But the problem is, any African country today, any European country, even Liechtenstein, can waltz into Africa, and no African country could do anything about it.
Not true.
That's actually the reasoning that Museveni gave behind the East African Confederation, and he kind of put it out there that they're uniting based on ethnic affiliation. So Museveni's publicly stated he's against what Gaddafi was trying to do, and basically Gaddafi's an Arab, so they're trying to create a black league where they can defend themselves. He specifically mentioned that.
Well, that's a positive.
That's not the future. That's the present. That's what's actually going down, and they're the ones connecting to the Caribbean. So,
well, I can't deny that. That sounds good. But as far from a non-Pan-Africanist point of view, to me, the Africans got to show me something. They got to show me they're gonna take. Listen, hold on. They're gonna take the North back.
Who are you?
Yeah, okay.
Who am I? I'm somebody who needs to be convinced. That's who I am.
Look, you're Aboriginal, indigenous. You know where.
But you are too, though. As long as you're not Caribbean, you are too.
You know where you're from. Just go focus on that. Why are you in Pan-African spaces if you're not Pan-African?
from my perspective, I think as a lot of these guys just clown around as soon as they see Africa have tangible, they'll jump from more to this to that. They'll jump on the African bandwagon. That's why they're they're bandwagon.
Let me tell you real quick. I used to be.
They were rooting for the Bulls in the '90s. Now they're rooting for the Wolves.
I used to be affiliated with Pan Africanists, the red, black, and green people with the medallions and all that kind of stuff. And I used to, I was brainwashed into believing that I had something to do with Africa, but I never totally went by it because I'm like, these people don't look like me. So, once that,
what do you look like?
Light skin. This dude on here looking like
Yeah, cam up.
You look like the bar. You look like
Hey man, that's a lot of people in North Africa. And people right now sitting on the Africa's greatest piece of land, North Africa, with all the history, and nobody in Africa doing nothing about it.
Man, look.
And do you classify yourself as a red bone?
Nah, that's for people that's
Look, show your face on it. Hey, turn on your camera.
I don't have a camera. I don't do freaky things. That's why I don't have a camera.
Boy, lighter than a vanilla wafer.
Matter of fact, I'm looking at my arm. I might be about that.
Oh my god!
Nah, matter of fact, ice cream, a waffle cone. That's probably about my complexion.
Hey, brother Bakari, I'm about to head out. All right.
All right, man. I thank you for dropping in, man. Hey, you going live tomorrow? Yeah, we got you. Are you going live tomorrow?
Yes, sir.
All right, and I might come over, but give people time so we can explain our positions clearly, so we can edify the people.
I'm not letting you explain nothing on my channel. Your ass is gonna get censored.
Yeah, I know, because
just to censor you.
The truth is too hard, man. That's all I'm trying to do is bring the truth. I don't care what direction it goes in.
You know the truth. You just got a bunch of open-ended questions.
No, I don't. Actually, believe it or not, I got a lot of he had to leave. See, that's what he always does, because my man can't take this, man. He can't take it. I didn't mean to drive your man away, but I'm just saying, my man just can't take it.
Hey, Hulko, let me ask you a question, right? Who produced the weapons for the Native Americans?
1 second.
Why do we go into these type of questions?
Because you're constantly talking about Africa, so I was just asking.
Okay, all right.
This is a conversation about power, man. About military. We were talking about CARICOM and African Union coming together and needing grassroots. We got indigenous tribes in the Caribbean that are part of the conversation. So if you're about that life, if you're about that life.
Well, the Caribbean's got to fend for themselves. I'm not a Marcus Garvey type of person where we combine everybody.
The Native Americans in the Caribbean are basically in contact with the African Union now. They're organized down there. So we talked about this. Bakari, we talked about this earlier, where the only reason to unite is to fight a bigger enemy. So people come in who don't want to fight, and they start talking in circles.
No, actually, I didn't even talk. You didn't even hear me. I was trying to gain clarification because you said something about Native Americans in the Caribbean. I'm like, who are these people?
Oh my God. The Caribbean is named after the Caribs, a Native American group, brother.
So you talking about the predates Columbus?
Yeah.
Okay, where are these people at? No, reason why, because I've never seen these people. The closest I've seen were some alleged Tainos in Puerto Rico, but they all look like light-skinned black people.
I've never seen no black Aboriginal to the United States, but y'all claim y'all are.
Nah, the evidence is there. That's why I'm talking this talk freely, because it's there. I've seen more than enough.
Take a DNA test.
See, DNA test, that's false. That doesn't tell you anything.
So is that what you're going to tell the court? If that woman put you on child support, that what you're going to tell them?
But that's a different type of DNA test. You can't.
No, it's the same DNA.
No, actually, no, it's not. No, it's different.
No, it's not.
Yes, it is. You can't take a DNA test and say, okay, this person's Italian, because Italian is not a race. You know how many people invaded Italy after Rome fell, and before Rome got established? There's no way how you can take a DNA test to establish that you're Italian.
How many invaded Rome?
too many. That's practically the entire world.
Yes, you
That
can take a
is-
DNA test. You can take a DNA test and tell you where you're from. And it can tell
No.
you your ancestors, it can tell you all that.
That's just not
Yeah,
possible. It's all lies and entertainment.
Yeah, it's actually, it is true. You could take DNA tests, and that's one of the things Council of Igbo states in America do. They do DNA tests to connect people with like the traditional governments or the kings in Africa. And recently, they just connected with the Maroons in Jamaica through one of the DNA tested African was a Maroon, so they're part of that movement now. And one of the UNIA, they're connected to the Black Caribs, the Garifuna people, Belize, Honduras. So these are people. These are Black people with land.
See,
and
now
autonomy.
I can accept those, but see, I thought
Okay.
you're talking about the islands itself, not just adjacent land.
Yeah, they have. There's certain Native Americans. I don't.
But you know
look
what?
into them.
I don't mean to interrupt you again, but you know what? You just proved what I'm saying, because you said
What?
Black Caribs, Native
Yeah, the
Americans. So
No.
that's all we're talking about. We're just trying to tell the truth, man.
Let me just finish, bro. Because with the Black Caribs, I said they're in the UNIA, ACL, African Communities League, and they're trying to get sovereignty, which is when they partner with other governments. They got the independent land, so called, but they don't have active partners or active tribes that are working with them to basically take their sovereignty and militancy revolution to another level. That's our issue. People talk, but they don't support or organize. But they've been in there for 100 years. They're mixed Africans and Caribs that kept the language and culture.
Oh, now you lost me now.
Yeah, they'll tell you yourself, but
because you said mixed.
You
But
know what,
Bakari-
Quan?
yeah.
But Bakari, what do you
Go
think about that?
ahead,
Because
go ahead, Quan.
he even your man right here even says that Black Native Americans. So I mean,
You can talk to them if you want to. They're in the African Communities League.
yeah, that's what I'm
They're
saying.
on the-
I'm saying that's a good thing because now
Yeah.
people like Bakari now that they can see where we're coming from now.
You know what?
What?
I'm gonna tell you something, man. I'm gonna tell all the words y'all use, right? Copper color. You say you don't use that, so I ain't gonna get that to you. There were brown skinned people here. Yep, I see brown skinned Mexican. A brown skinned Mexican don't look nothing like us. I see those people here. The stuff y'all doing, y'all make up stuff. It's okay. I understand you're embarrassed to be what you are, but it's amazing how. Give me one Native American word.
But check this out, though. See, your man just
That's
verified.
what I thought.
like,
Give me one Native American word.
you guys like or Hoyo. So you guys like to keep talking.
What does that mean?
Like like we're fluent
That
speakers
means
of
how?
languages.
You talking about like what is his name? John Wayne used to say in the cowboy movies. How?
No, I didn't say how, but check this out. When we ask, we don't go into name some African words because some people might come with some phrases and and some Swahili words and act like that's what's that guy? Kayla Genesis.
Okra. So many African
Kayla-
words. Goofer.
Kayla Genesis. Yeah. But who put those words here? It wasn't the slaves. That's for damn sure.
Jazz. Yep.
Jazz.
You ever heard of
Yeah, I
funk?
heard of that. Man, now you're lying now. Get the hell out of here with that.
They do
Jazz
research.
Jazz is slang.
Jazz is Congo. It's related to the word.
No, it's not. No, we're not from the Congo, sir.
It's related to the word jizz. They both mean to creative energy. Funk.
No. You must have learned that in a Pan-African seance meeting or something. But
It's research. It's the
But this is the
Bantuism
thing,
of African American.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
You ever heard of Bantu knots?
I have.
Hey,
But
man,
that's not words in the vocabulary. That's just something somebody called it.
Keep reading, my friend.
Believe me, you talking to a master teacher here. That's why I keep getting interrupted everywhere I go when I go on Pan-African circles because they don't want me dropping this heat.
How many master tanks have you built?
See, this is what I mean. I'm talking about the real stuff. You talking about tanks. Now, again, I did a video, and I detailed the strongest African armies, and none of them make anything. Nothing.
Yeah.
Egypt
we're talking about what the African Union is doing and the Caribbean is doing to gain power, and how the diaspora in America fits into that. Or as far as planning, it's kind of like a planning session, but you're not talking about uniting in any way.
Well, I'm talking about uniting among Black Americans, because we got to deal with our people.
Okay, so watch this, right? If you want to unite with Black Americans, so-called Black Americans, right? Why are you all always on Pan-African panels?
No, we're on our panels too, but see, we're trying to let you know that you are who we are. Well, not the Caribbean and African guys, but
see, but the problem is you can't do that, especially for me. You can't do that. So once you get to the point where you see you can't do that, why do you continue?
I'll tell you why. It's because with a lot of Pan-Africans, I could tell when they are being less truthful than I would prefer. So I just kind of figured, you know what, let me keep edifying them, and then maybe they'll finally research it on their own and accept the truth. Because again, I used to be Pan-African oriented, for real. I always used to act like I had to make relationships with people from Africa. I found them around town. I just go in and meet them and get numbers and have relationships with them and all that kind of stuff, because I felt that these were my people, even though I felt that then, as I keep looking at the different type of Africans, I'm like, man, none of them look like me. But I felt, hey, man.
Okay, cam up, let us see what you look like. Cam up, let us see what you look like.
Well, I don't have a camera, but, I always felt to myself, you know what? We should be together because they say we come from Africa. So, hey, man, I tried. But then there are other Africans I met, like a South African colored woman. I invited her to come into a discussion about Africa and Blackness. And that's when she she had that look like, I ain't with that.
She ain't black. She ain't black. She's colored.
Yeah, she said she ain't with that.
Colored is mixed. Colored is mixed. She's black and white, so she ain't black. She's mixed.
Right, but I mean,
what do you want to say, guy?
Okay.
I just have one question. I just want Alquan, just for fun. I just want him to take the DNA test, just to see what the DNA test would tell him. Now, if the DNA, because I trust the DNA, I trust science. The DNA should tell you that your roots is from here, right? And I bet you that it's not going to tell you that. I think it's going to tell you that you come from somewhere else.
Right, I agree with you.
So I think you should take it because if you try to get a native status card, right, you have to take DNA. The natives, if you're native Indian, you have to take DNA to prove that you're native to this land. So I think that if you trust DNA, because it's the same thing, like the brother said, Bakari, he said that it's all the same. So if child support, if a woman accuses you of getting her pregnant and she has a kid, you have to take the DNA to prove that is your kid or not. It's the same test. They swab you or it's the same test. Same thing if you committed a crime, right? Well, not you committed a crime, but I'm saying if there was a crime investigated, this a girl said that you raped her, it's the same thing. They take DNA to see.
They're not the same test, though.
It's the same test. Trust me, it's the same test. Don't take my word for it. Don't take my word for it. Just do the research yourself. It's the same test. They swab your mouth. They swab it. You know what I'm saying? It's the same thing. So I'm just saying that if you could trust DNA when it comes down to child support or a crime investigation, how come you can't trust DNA when it comes down to your roots? It doesn't make any sense to me.
Well, I can guarantee you that the defendant in a murder case, I can guarantee you he ain't trusting the DNA. So.
But I'm just saying that's how I look. DNA, they use DNA on everything, even on mummies. They use DNA. So if they use it, it gotta be, it gotta be, people trust it.
Well, let me explain why the DNA doesn't work. Because number one, when it comes to Native American,
Mhm.
See, they intentionally leave us out of the mix. So you can't find a Native American DNA that correlates to us. It's just like when you have people in Africa and you want to take a DNA test to see if they're related to ancient Egyptians, you won't have an ancient Egyptian DNA because they don't want Africans to be related to them, except if they're white looking, of course. So they leave groups out.
Let me say this. I didn't mean to cut you off, brother. Let me say this real quick. Because I got one more other question I wanted to ask you. Just one more after this. So that means you don't trust yourself because you are DNA. That means that's what you're saying. You don't trust yourself.
No, I'm saying I don't trust the white man.
No. You have DNA. So your DNA, there's a marker that tell you exactly who you are and where you're from. This is facts. So that means if you say you don't trust DNA, that means you don't trust yourself. Because you are science. You are science.
Markers don't tell you where you're from because people have been migrating, enslaved, and conquering for thousands of years and being mixed. Most people are mixed on the planet, believe it or not.
And one more question I want to ask, and I'll give it to Brother McCall. One more thing I want to say. What do Black Americans eat? What do y'all eat? And remind you, when I say this, don't mention anything that come from Africa. You got to tell me, what do you eat if you from this
tribal diet.
Well, that's kind of like.
What does that mean? What is tribal diet? I don't know. I guess Alcon can tell me what is the tribal diet. But I'm saying you can't say rice, you can't say yams, because all that came from Africa. Why you should tell us what Black Americans eat if you from North America? That's all I got to say.
And so to answer that, that also means that I can't mention pizza, lasagna, chow mein.
There you go. We got him.
Because what he's doing is right, because he can't answer. He didn't say you couldn't name Italian food. You can name that. But he said don't name no African food. What's your original diet? What did y'all eat?
Okay. Turkey, corn, and down in Mexico, tortillas and stuff like that.
They had turkey back then? Y'all eating turkeys back then?
Yeah.
They were eating buzzard. Turkey buzzard. Go look it up. They were eating buzzard meat.
And they were eating, and also too, I'm sorry.
Wait a minute. He named 3 foods.
Well, that's an example. What do you think the Thanksgiving dinner comes from? Stuffing the turkey, you know that?
Tortillas.
No, I'm saying in Mexico it's tortillas.
And corn. Matter of fact, you can watch documentaries on Mexico and they'll tell you their spices and everything came from Africa. They even tell you that a lot of the stuff they cook come from Africa. They're not ashamed to say it, but for some strange reason, Black folks is. Even
these Mexicans don't want to admit the Olmecs are Black.
Even the hot spices that Black people love now, where you think that come from? That's not from here. That hot, real hot spicy, that's not from here. It's spices not from like Mexico. What? Real hot, spicy food. That's not from here. It's not from Mexico.
How's that an African thing?
That's African culture.
Well, you look at soul food, that's not spicy.
I had some spicy yams, boy. That shit was sweet. I'm telling you, that's not true.
That's new to me. I never had no spicy macaroni and cheese. I'll tell you that.
And guess what? He still, and you know what? What did happen? Cultures merged. Macaroni and cheese. He's talking about somebody else's culture. The Black Africans got it and made it taste good. Knew how to do it. But once again, he named 3 foods because he want to say okra, but it come from Africa. He want to say black-eyed peas, but it come from Africa. He want to say watermelon, but it come from Africa. He want to say them yams, but it come from Africa. So he said,
"Well, if I wanted to say it, I would have said it." But check it out. There's another thing. Like I said in the beginning when I first came on, if you notice with sports, no matter how big and strong Africans look, they suck at sports. They can't beat us. They can't beat us.
That's not true. That's not true.
Yes, it is. Every Olympics or anything else, they can't beat us in running unless it's the long distance running. They can't deal with us in basketball. They always get shut down in basketball.
Because I think you could school them on that one.
They got one.
Who's the greatest power forward ever played the game of basketball?
I guess they say what? Tim Duncan?
Hakeem Olajuwon.
No, he was the center.
No, he was not. He was a power forward. Ralph Sampson was the center. That's why everybody
Well, that was
talk
back
about
then.
Ralph
That was,
Sampson.
but after Ralph Sampson left, then Hakeem was the center.
The first time they went to the NBA Finals, they lost to the Boston Celtics in 6. He was a power forward. He was only 6'8", 6'9". He's
6'11".
not. He was no. He's not 6'11". You know.
No, I was just watching documentaries on him the other day. They said he was 6'11", and next to Patrick Ewing, you can see the height difference.
One of the greatest shot blockers, if not Dikembe Mutombo.
No, I ain't gonna tell you no lie. Hakeem was the nicest center of all time. No doubt about that.
What about Dikembe Mutombo?
Nah, he's different. He's more about shot blocking than anything else.
But you said
Kareem.
But those guys were literally 1 in a million, especially Hakeem.
Kareem Abdul-Jabbar traced his roots back to Yoruba land, and Tim Duncan's from the Virgin Islands. That's basically
U.S. Virgin Islands. Right?
Yeah, the Igbo land. Yeah.
So. But I don't know about Kareem. I mean, his name is Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. But he's talking about being the Igbo. And he
Yoruba.
Yoruba land. But see, that's that feel good stuff. You can't prove it there, but
okay.
But the bottom line is, because I think about it too. No, I do, and there are a lot of Africans in football. I make note of that, but there aren't too many great African football players. Look at that, Emmanuel Acho. He only had about 4 seasons in the NFL, and his brother, they both suck. I mean, I can't think of any. I was thinking about what African.
What about Ndamukong Suh?
Okay, there you go. Now, white man might say, "Well, his white blood made him great," but
now, what it is it's
you see how light he is. Come on, you see how light that guy is.
What white blood is? His dad is Nigerian. I think it's his dad's that Nigerian, and his mom is Jamaican, a black Jamaican.
Okay, there you go. But check it out. See, no, that might be why he's great. Then the Jamaican part.
It's the investment in the development of the countries that goes into the sports system. So,
but we didn't have any investments, but we just turned out to be great.
What are you talking about, bro? The U.S.
You realize we were banned from all sports. We were banned from playing basketball, banned from playing baseball, banned from playing football. We just got in the game and took it over. That's why they wanted to ban us, because they knew we were going to take it over. Now, Africans, I was doing the research, and not for this type of argument, but just for my own curiosity to see how many Africans were in a Hall of Fame. And Bakari just said, Dikembe Mutombo, Hakeem. I can't think of anybody else. We got what's that guy, Alawande, or whatever his name was, that they always identify as a bust. And what's the other guy? Okafor. All these Africans.
They're all from the same country.
Yeah, they all end up being busts. And the football players fare better because they actually have some type of career going. But for the most part, they suck. Caribbean guys, mainly the Haitian guys, play football better than the Africans, though.
Now, White, so before we get out here, I'm going to say this, right? Have you noticed the Aboriginals, Black Americans, whatever they want to call themselves, right? They focus on sports. Have you ever thought about it, Alquan, that maybe other people focus it somewhere else because Africans come here and they graduate college more at a higher rate?
Well, that's good to have that focus, and that's true. But check it out. The white man always told us that we have.
Look, on this channel right here, right? We removing all crutches, so ain't no need to talk. I'm gonna let you go, but we ain't talking about no white man and other folks. We talking about black folks. That's it, because some other people ain't got nothing to do with it.
Okay.
So I'm gonna ask again. We ain't talking about them. They ain't got nothing to do with it. We removing all crutches over here. Stand on your own.
Okay, well, I was just going to use an example that the white man always told us we were born to do what we do. So if we were born to do what we do and we come from Africa, then the Africans should be born to do what we do, but they can't do what we do. We
not necessarily.
We sing the best. We got the rap. We got jazz, all the types of music's created in this country. We did it. Africans don't have none of that. Africans can't. They're supposed to be known for dance. But what dances did they make up? That's great. Only thing I can think of is the Watusi. You know?
Okay. I'm gonna show you something, right? Before I go, right? Like this, right? I'm gonna talk about this, and this is a horrible thing to talk about, but I'm gonna show you something.
All right.
African people, black people here, African descendants, they were bred like slaves. They fired Jiminy Greek a long time ago for telling the truth on TV. But that's actually what happened. So do you think that might have something to do with it? They bred you like a horse to get a certain product?
Well,
so we gonna breed this man in because they looked at you like an animal. So we gonna breed these people to do specific things. So now those people that they have bred like a horse to do specific things, they're not in the cotton fields and the tobacco fields anymore. So now that you bred them to run fast and to work hard and to be big and strong so they could do more of that type of work. Do you think that has something to do with the reason why they may be more athletic?
Okay, so you're saying that before basketball and before football were even created, we were bred to play these sports that didn't exist.
I say during slavery. No, I didn't say nothing about to play the sport. So what? Cause see, now you're doing it as they call it, elbow shuffle. So I'm gonna say it again. You were bred like a horse to pick cotton, tobacco, to be big and strong. Because the bigger and stronger you were, the more you could pick, the more you could carry, the more. So now, since you're not in the cotton fields and tobacco fields anymore, because of the way they treated our ancestors like animals, now those people is better in sports now. They're not needed in no cotton field, tobacco field, sugarcane plantation. They're not needed in those things anymore. So now, through that breeding, do you think that would have something to do with why they're faster and more athletic, because they did selective breeding?
Now that sounds like a good philosophy from the white man, but you got to understand.
Oh well, I told you we ain't talking about no white man.
Oh, because you were talking about Jimmy the Greek. That's his thing. But check it out. Here's the thing: after slavery until let's say 1920, we got around 65 years or so between time when we were slaves and to the time that basketball, football came out. So by that time, we talking about what, 3 generations. We weren't picking cotton, and I don't know who the hell was running on a slave plantation in order to run track, but that's what Africans, they do that kind of stuff. You see, they excel in that because that's what they have out there. They excel in long distance running because that's what they do. Walk all day from coast to coast to Africa. That takes time. We don't do that kind of stuff. We never have done that. But we learn the process of playing sports. And we play basketball because that's the least expensive sport to play. All you need is a ball and a cleat or something like that to put the ball in, and you're good to go. That's why we don't play hockey that much, even though we actually created hockey. That's the irony of it.
Okay, so you said, so when did you say the NFL? Because in 1920, Fritz Pollard played in there,
right?
African American. So once again, so like I said, dude.
No, I said in between the time from slavery ended until the NFL came into being, and he started out in college. I believe he was the first black guy in college, and college predates the NFL, college football.
They played baseball in the 1880s.
That takes no effort. Baseball takes no effort to play.
Have you ever played baseball?
Yes, I have.
What position?
Pitcher.
Who?
Pitcher.
You just said
no, I'm not lying. I played it in college.
What college you played baseball at?
I ain't gonna tell you the name because you got people out here listening, but You know, they put the pieces together. It's these people that shut my channel down. That's why I don't like giving out clues.
I'm not one. Look, I'm just messing with you because I'm not one of the people that gonna go try to put nothing together and make you look bad. The conversation, okay?
Right, but trust me. They troll hard. Trust me.
No, but I'm just letting you know that's not my style. Me and you just talking, right? I don't get down like that. Somebody have done it to me. Just did a show about me calling me a Pan-African sewer rat, but I don't care. You know, I don't even care, man. I don't even care, dude. Look, but for the record,
that's why I don't do that. That's why I don't show my face, because of guys like that you see what they would do, run with information.
If it ever happened, just remember this. Don't worry, I didn't do it because I don't get down like that.
I know that. I know you don't do nothing like that.
This YouTube stuff, man, can go too far. It can cause some problems. I ain't gonna ever do nothing like that. But man, we've been on here 3 hours, and this is as long as I ever did a show. Y'all still want to talk? I'm about to do like Cuddy in a minute. I'm gonna be snowing.
Yeah, man. The thing is, with like we said earlier, man. Like if we don't act on this plan that we are talking about earlier, it's gonna take 50 or 100 years. Because no offense, but the brothers like these, when they come in with this, they change the whole flow of the meeting. So in our system, we don't actually allow
of the bill,
dissenting views. If you want to organize your own worldview and you think you could do it, go ahead. But we don't allow, these kind of different views. We cut out the religion. We cut out the Native American talk. And I mean, anybody could join the regular UNIA, but they don't. They can start their own African American Native Association if they think they can. But with our system, we're just straightforward because we know what time it is. And if we miss the boat, man, it'd be 100 years, 200 years.
I'm calling tomorrow. Well, it's today now, but I'm calling tomorrow and talk.
All right, I can send you I can send you some links and also, a PDF so people can work on it. Because Atlanta's like the bridge between South Florida and where I'm at to all the way to New York and out west. So I've never been able to connect to Atlanta. But if we move it, that's basically Black USA right there. So, it's easier. It's really easy, put out shirts. People say, what is this about? We're already doing the basketball in Africa. So, but the thing is, if you look at an African constitution, what it takes to get Black people to work together, it'll be 400 pages. Just like the Ashanti wrote out the Constitution, it's 400 pages just to get Black people to work together. So when someone comes and says they're Aboriginal and they're trolling and making, being disruptive and like they're not even started yet. Like with their culture, it's not going to work. Like 400 pages just for one tribe to come together. So just saying 200 or 500 years to come together is realistic because it's not easy. That's just my comment.
So let me close.
I think Alquan love us. He want to be a part. He Alquan, you welcome. I told you, you can say you Aboriginal or whatever. I already told you, I don't even care about that, man. We talking about working together. You already know I don't care about that. So I know you know me, so.
Right. Now, I like the conversation, but I also like the truth. That's what I like more than anything because I grew up in a household full of liars. I mean, if I told you the lies that these people told me, you wouldn't believe it. Then again, some of you might, because some of you may have experienced the same thing. So that's why I like looking out for the truth. And I don't like feel-good stuff. I don't like manufactured BS to make you attach you to somebody else that has no attachment to you. I like going where the truth is. And the truth is, with a lot of Pan-African dialogue, the focus is almost always on the Caribbean, then Africa, and what Black America can do to help them, but it's never what they can do to help us. That's the problem. As Black Americans, you should be concerned with that because they never focus on us. It's always on them. And that's what they do. They reel you in, or should I even say sucker you in, to helping them out. It's not about them. It's about us. We're in the United States. We're not in some other country. If these people in Africa, they can't get themselves together. They can't even build a dirt road. You see how their streets are, man. They got people riding in the streets with cars and people walking in the streets at the same time.
I wanted to say something in response. Marcus Garvey, it gets twisted. He wasn't part of the Pan-Africanist movement. He called it African fundamentalism, where we're talking about building empires and looking back to our roots. Nile Valley, Kemet. He was an African fundamentalist and basically Negro imperialist, he was about building empires. So,
well, he didn't build any empire.
We're talking about connecting with the culture strategically. The Caribbean was the initial base because their land, they're basically black islands, black cities, and today they're in the United Nations. So, with the USA being, racially more integrated, it wasn't ever supposed to be the headquarters really, but the Caribbean was supposed to be the base, and then Africa because it's blacker. So, as far as the population. So the USA, when you start to get into integration issues and civil rights and basically
I had
integration.
discussions on this on other channels. Marcus Garvey, if he was really serious, he would have had better success in other countries, especially in the Caribbean, or hell, even in Africa itself. But I don't even want to get into that because people know my stance on that, and a whole lot of other people's stance on that.
The Caribbean did have racial issues, where it was basically they called it mulatto aristocracy. So the mulattoes are people closer to white Christian society, were more highly positioned in the whole political system than the black.
Like Bob Marley, right?
Yeah, he's more popular than say. Peter Tosh, his dad was actually like a British sharecropper, plantation runner.
But you see what I mean, though? As we talk, I was talking about us, then they switch it over and talking about the Caribbean. I don't give two damns about the Caribbean. I'm gonna be honest with you.
But that was our conversation before you came on here. Our conversation about black people connecting. Yeah, where you from? That's what our conversation was about. See, I'm not me and my mindset and my people. We ain't just stuck. You know what? We can be great slaves here. All we got to do is claim the reservation. It's like if we claim the reservation, we'll be okay. Even though we can't get no land, can't get no land nowhere, really. But
that's not the reason. We just going by what the facts are.
Okay, good. But that's not what the show was about, though. So we gonna talk to about what the show was about. CARICOM, the Caribbean, American-born Africans, the continent of Africa, and all the diaspora connecting. That's what the show was about, though.
Okay. No, well, yeah, when I came in, I guess it turned into something else. But see, Bakari, I'm going to close out with this. I don't just, my man right here, he called it trolling. They call truth-telling trolling these days. But the truth is, I go to the house of the PhDs, the so-called master teachers, and I bring this to them, and they can't defend their Pan-Africanism. So if they can't defend it, I don't know why somebody else thinks that they can defend it, because these are the master teachers. And, like I said, I was in that Dr. Mahat with that Bakari, Baruti guy, and my man was buck dancing. That, what's that guy, Maui Baruti?
But with us, that's a master teacher. That's a diaspora.
Yeah, my man got waxed.
They don't, in the Pan-Africanism thing, like the people we're connected to, they're not part of that. We discuss like how we have the Senegambia, the Nile, something called Oduduwa, and the Bantu, like 4 empires or cultures in Africa where it's basically they'll teach you the martial arts systems, the civilization system, and come together beyond these countries and borders. But that's if you contact, the organizations, they're ready to teach anybody ready to work together. But we don't have terms like master teacher and conscious community or Pan-African.
You got a different situation. What's your website?
Brother Bakari can show. It's CISA, CISA, basically that's another organization. But we're trying to bring together two organizations from scratch. There's a Council of Igbo States in America.
Council of Igbo States
in America. Mm-hmm. And then there's also the UNIACL, which is split like three ways, but it's basically diaspora. We're trying to bring the diaspora together as well, but they're split. But
all right, that's fine. See, now I might talk about against a lot of things, but at the same time, I don't stand in the way. If whatever you can do is going to do what it's going to do, I'm fine with that. That might shock a lot of people, but I actually am fine with that. But before I go, let me just explain or respond to the lady who said that I do anything to avoid being African, but I'm not avoiding it. It's just that I'm not that. And I mean, and if you want to talk about Caribbeans and Jamaicans in particular avoiding being African, I mean, look at how many weaves Jamaican women are wearing and knit hats. They wear a winter cap outside, and it could be 100 degrees outside. They just don't want that African hair showing. So that's to me, that's avoiding being African. So I'm done.
All right, go ahead, brother Guy.
Yeah, I'm like, this been another epic program. I want to say peace to the hotel, to the chat, everybody on the panel. I don't really get into the whole the division. I don't know what a Black American is. I do know that as a race of people, there's other Black people that have similar issues. I think that Black folks here in America take their money, take their finances, and rebuild Africa, then they will have, like Alquan said, will have like better roads and stuff like that. I'm talking about those countries that really need help, but they're all parts in Africa the cities are really beautiful, really nice. So we can't put out that negative stereotype like that, because there are African countries that look better than cities over here. Like I said, I'm a Pan-African. Pan means a broad African. I trust DNA. I was never told that I was Native Indian in my family. So it just shows you that the stories that my family was probably passed down to my generation. They told me where they was from. So that's where I'm going to go. But I'm going to listen to my ancestors and my family. So because I never read any ancestor said that they was Native Indian or native to this land. They always said they came from Africa. But if we're going to use the word the Black code, because America follows a color code, right? It refers to police as the boys in blue. When they identify a suspect, they always resort to color. So as Black people, I'm willing to unite. Even Malcolm X said he's willing to unite with other African leaders so we can all work together. But like I said, we take our resources and stop marrying other races that don't like us, and we try to paint them black, like, oh, they're one of us, because we give them a black starter kit type of shit. You know what I mean? We got to stop doing that stuff. We got to, I agree with Alquan. Maybe we got to stop wearing the fake weaves and stop looking European. You know what I'm saying? And start looking more of what we was born to be. So I agree with Alquan on that. But we have to unite with other African and bring more ideas and more structure. Like Alquan, I remember him saying that we need structure in our race, because we adopted a lot of European nonsense. And I'm telling you now, when we adopt their behaviors and their lifestyle, it will destroy our movement. So we have to start adopting our culture, and or at least, you know, to see what culture works, and we could apply it to our lives, you know, our principles. You know, we have African principles that we follow that never that's still irrelevant to this day. So I'm always willing to work and bring new ideas with other African people, whether they from, and whether you have Africa, you have African people in Europe, you have African people in the islands, as well as the continent. So we have to unite. We just can't be isolated and just be like this, you know, how they would say, this Wakanda type of you know, isolation where we can't unite with other black folks. You know what I'm saying? That's you know, we can't have that mindset. It's silly. It won't work. So go ahead, brother. I'm sorry.
No, that's funny because the word Wakanda, it's like the word Kemet. It's like a federal. It actually literally means like a federation, or the people of a similar clan. So, you know, it's like different clans. It's just basically, if you trace it, it's back to basically a civilization, people coming together. But in the movie, it shows like people isolating themselves.
Right.
But at the same time, it shows 4 different communities coming together as a nation. But eventually, all Africa would be like that if we do what we're supposed to do.
Right. And I agree with you, because I was going by the comic book way of saying it, you know, the whole isolation. I think we should not be doing that. But I think we should unite and come together as a black race, because white people do it all the time. You know, Alquran sees it. You know, I see white Americans unite with white British, you know what I'm saying?
Scottish.
Yeah, exactly. So they have no issues, and they call themselves the white race. So how come we got to do the exact same thing? If we're going to follow, and other races, every race do it. Even look at Asian, they do it too. Chinese work with Koreans and vice versa. So we're the only race of people that hate on each other, and that's wrong. It's wrong. We won't never be a powerful race. We talk about race because that's what, like Brother Bakari said, we are in a race. Is every race for itself. So I just want to leave it like that. I hope Alquan understands where I'm coming from. But I appreciate y'all too, brothers. I appreciate everybody on the panel, man. Y'all doing your thing, and I'm just glad to be a part. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I understand what you're saying, brother. Believe me. But, you know, we still got our different philosophies. Mine is based on truth. Others are based on, you know, what sounds good. I mean, because you look at Umar Johnson, what he did with his fake marriages. Is that Pan-African? Maybe it is. Might be. Because Africans marry more than one woman. So that might be the case. But I'm just saying, man, I just prefer the truth wherever the evidence leads to. If Africa can't unite, if the Caribbean can't unite on its own, especially when you got Dominican Republic and Cuba there, I mean, you just can't think you're going to take people from all over the world and say, let's get together for some black power. That's just going to be rough.
That's a good point, though, actually. If you look at the Dominican Republic flag and you zoom in, and even if you look at the structure of the flag or the symbol, it's a cross. It's a giant cross. And that goes back to what we talked about, Haiti, the Haitian Empire. And every slave, basically they created an empire based on African traditional civilization. Voodoo, you know, the black energy, dark matter. So they created their own civilization that was from Africa. And then they didn't get enough support from Africa militarily. They were cut off. And then, you got the Dominican Republic, which is basically they're saying where the cult of it's like a religious denomination. It's like
pause 1 second. Did you say the Dominican Republic didn't get enough support from Africa?
No, Haiti didn't get enough.
Haiti. But
so Dominican Republic, you got
you said they don't or didn't.
they still don't really. Their continental Africans weren't organized to support Haitians as a race, and with the whole Caribbean, if you look at the names and the titles and the history, it's basically like a Christian slave colony. So you got countries named after Christian saints, and you got states called parishes, just like a church parish. And
right. Well, that's because really of French connection. But you said that the Africans didn't help the Haitians, right?
Yeah, they were cut off. So
right. Now, when you say cut off, do you mean that they were once put on?
Like, I'm saying, like, what we're doing now, we're trying to organize the giant communities like Oduduwa, we mentioned, Bantu, the Nile, and the Senegambian Malian people to become one. And we're going to use the African Union as a platform to promote ourselves. So we're saying,
good luck to you on that. But I know African, especially when you get into that middle of the Sahara, man, there's still race wars going on right now that people don't really understand that's going on.
Just like some of the same type of race wars that's going on over here?
Nah. With that one over there, it's involving actual killing and taking over capitals whenever they can.
The one over here involving actual killing?
Well, not on a regular basis and not for the way it's actual war over there. Been that way for about, what, 1,500 years?
You're right. The difference is they'll fight back and the black folks over here ain't. Is that what you're saying?
Well, I mean, you had the mixed guy. You remember that guy in Timbuktu? He destroyed some of the.
I ain't going all the way back to Timbuktu.
No. This is about 5 years ago. The guy.
We talked about that earlier, actually, with the Moors and the North. They made a deal.
Yeah,
we talked about it earlier.
But so you know what, man? We're gonna go ahead and get over here, man. I got to go to bed. Hey, Cesaro, we're going to have to do it again. Hardcore, you can come back through, but you know what? One thing I realized, there's no need to talk to you talking about doing nothing, but we can hold conversations on YouTube because you ain't trying to do nothing.
No, I'm trying to do something, but it got to be something I want to do.
Okay, well, yeah.
There's Black Caribs in New York if you're in there. But
okay, yeah.
I don't know. But hey, I appreciate you, Bakari, for hosting us. It takes a lot of effort and planning. I know how, but you know, in conclusion, I would like to follow up on you because Atlanta, you can go east, you go west, you go north. We do something together like shirts and the basketball we're doing. It'll take off. But you know, that's all I got to say. I probably had something else to say, but it slips me right now.
All right, peace out.
Hey, Alquan, you know what? This is what I'm going to do for you, right? Yeah. I want you to come through here one day. Let me see. I'm going to find a date because I ain't got your email. I don't know if you got mine or not. And I'm going to give you an opportunity to come over here. Yeah, I got yours. And email me so I can have your email. I'm going to give you an opportunity to come over here and say your foolishness. And I'm going to ball it up, put it in a brown paper bag, take the brown paper bag to the trash, get that garbage bag and take it to the incinerator because that's what needs to be done with it. So
that's already bias right there. Call it foolishness.
You know you good to come back through, Alquan.
You know you can come back to mine when I go on next and because we like. Matter of fact, that show that you on, did you see D. Jarrell when he came on?
Yeah, man, I was getting tired, man.
Okay, because
I was getting tired then.
Because I kept telling D. Jarrell, I said, man, out of all the Pan-Africans on YouTube, I said, you represented the best. You got to take lessons, D. Jarrell. You got to take lessons from him. It's hard to think about it when you listen to his show on Umar Johnson and all that, but he represented for you guys. I got to tell you.
Well, you know, everybody, you know, what y'all consider Pan-Africanism, I don't think most people don't even understand what Pan-Africanism is. Because most people scream, well, go back to Africa. That's not even what Pan-Africanism is. So that's not what Pan-Africanism is. But look, man, I'm going to get over here. I'm dog tired, man. I got to get up in the morning, go load this truck, then unload this truck. Huh?
All right.
I just had one
Before
last
I-
thing to say. I remembered
good.
what I had to say, but you know, going forward with the term Pan-African having so many different definitions and groups, we started saying African fundamentalism, and there's Garvey wrote a text about it saying that's his philosophy. It's like his greatest work. But African fundamentalism, and then there's the whole and like call yourself an African fundamentalist even, because it goes into voodoo, it goes into your culture, it goes into empire building wherever you are, just logic. But the last thing I wanted to say was I work with a brother down here who's a professor, and he can articulate our points even better from a diaspora perspective, just so you know it's not just me saying it from Nigeria or Biafra. But his name is Professor Baruti Katembo, and he's into the whole Bantu as an ethnic term and creating a new term that's based on that culture, not conscious or New African, or try to get something Bantu related, because if you look at the people in Africa, the largest geographical space and culture would be the Bantu, where the diaspora could integrate and reinforce us as a continent. That would be the largest space and the least fighting or drama going on. So if Baruti Katembo could be on this platform, it would take things to another level. He had the whole, that's the Shaka Zulu, Zimbabwe, Congo empire paradigm that they got going on.
Oh, okay.
Even Tanzania, they had to fight a war against Arab slavery. They're part of that whole paradigm. A lot of people don't know that's how Tanzania got started, but it's a lot of notches under the belt. And he's got the whole paradigm down where he can explain it better than me.
All right, my man. Hey, look, I'm gonna shoot you a text, man. We're gonna have to do this again. Let me know what day good for you, all right?
Man, shoot, yup. You just said whatever day I'll probably be open. Most likely.
All right, I'm gonna shoot you a text. All right. Peace, bro.
All right,
Thank everybody for joining. One love, one love, one love. Peace.